going up and up and up and up.
Okay, we have people here now? Yes?
We do.
Okay, I'd like to bring this meeting to order for Thursday, November 12th, 2020. And we previously took roll and we've been in a closed session. And to report what's happened in that closed session is we discussed negotiations, which were collective bargaining session for planning and preparation for PGTA for 2021. Also discussed was collective bargaining session planning and preparation for CSEA for 2021. And also we conferred with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, and there was discussion with no action taken at this time. All right, and as we begin this meeting, we've got three folks here tonight, three trustees. So I would like to move to have Brian Swanson act as clerk this evening. And we need to vote on that.
That is, we need a second and a vote, please.
I second that. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so Brian Swanson will serve as clerk this evening.
Perfect.
So next, we'll move forward with a pledge of allegiance, please. And Gabriella, you're here this evening?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? You're
Sure,
chewing.
why not?
You're chewing. You got to swallow first.
Okay,
No choking,
here, I'll sip a water, I'm ready.
Okay.
please.
Okay, everyone ready?
Yes.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. All right, the first thing we'll go to this evening will be communications, and communications that the board has received. There was some regarding field usage and some complaints regarding usage or lack thereof. There was also parent concern regarding teacher, and additionally, employee survey was sent on to us, and a letter regarding conditioning pods. Is there anything else, Mr. Paff or Swanson?
I think that covers it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you got them all there. Trustee
Okay.
Dawson, president, or what are we calling you tonight? Are you president tonight? Or
I
what-
like
or-
Madam President.
Madam
I've already
President.
changed, and I've only been called that a couple of times. All right. So those are communications for this evening. And now we'll move on to board member comments. And I can start that I think we're all aware that there may have been a big election in not only our community, but nationally. And we are delighted to announce that Mr. Swanson will continue on, and that Mrs. Swanson will be joining us in December. So there'll be some changes, and that's exciting as we move forward. We also got a lovely thing from the leadership class, and it was to the jump video with Eddie Van Halen. So it's quite uplifting. It boosted my spirits. So I thank them for that. And with the Mr. Hegwist talked about being knocked down and getting right back up. So it was a great communication thing. Mr. Paff?
Well, I agree with you. I'd like to congratulating Mr. Swanson and Ms. Swanson, unrelated. And thank Mr. Keller for talking with me at Robert Down and walking me around as much as possible, pretty much after hours. The other day, I do enjoy being on campus, and it's site visits are a lot harder these days. So thank you and your teachers who were there and very cordially came out to say hello at least. And that's good for now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Swanson?
Well, thank you for the congratulations. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to another 4 years. I also wanted to thank the community at large because some of you know I live across the street from the PG middle school playfield, and as things were kind of getting out of hand with people gathering there, it was a source of angst for me because I hate to be that guy who goes over. I've kicked kids off of the top of the restrooms before, and I feel like Clint Eastwood telling some people to get off my lawn. So this last few days has been great, and it's nice to see people pulling together and understanding what we're trying to do. So thanks to everybody for that. I also wanted to give a shout out to Jared Mazer. I'd taken a look at some of his videos that he has put together for the music students, and they are astoundingly good. And just watching his methods in teaching music to the kids, it's really impressive. If you haven't had an opportunity to look at those, I urge you to do so. He's a wonderful teacher and an asset to the district. And last but most certainly not least, the Van Halen video was awesome.
Yeah.
I have nothing more to say other than that. It was awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And now Dr. Porras for the superintendent report.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate it. And just a couple of quick items here. First off, as you all did, I also want to congratulate both Ms. Carolyn Swanson and Mr. Brian Swanson, unrelated to the board. And just wonderful just to see, number one, that so many people out in our community voted. And of course, number two, supporting our school district as always. And just a reminder to the public that our board members are in a voluntary position. They volunteer to do this work. And especially in these times right now, where it is incredibly hard to try to juggle and balance all of the particulars, being a volunteer and trying to make big decisions for all of our students and our families, almost a Sisyphean task. And I have to say that I'm just incredibly pleased with the work that the board is doing, and just thrilled that we have Carolyn joining us as well. I think it's going to be a great team as always, and look forward to continuing working with everyone. Also, as Trustee Swanson mentioned, the fields have been reopened now for about a week, and it was a very difficult decision to close them, but they have been reopened. We have some new signage up there. I want to thank Director Kelly for his work and his team helping us try to monitor and do a better job with that. And I'm happy to say that as I've been doing the drive-bys in the afternoon or early mornings, people are doing a great job of trying to follow the rules that we have out there and being cooperative with each other. And just glad to see that it's working out. We want to keep them open, and I'm glad that we're getting the cooperation to make sure that that happens. And then last but not least, I want to just let you all know that it was an honor to be asked by our police chief, Chief Kathy Matalone, to serve on the panelist member for the interviews for the new police commander that's coming up. As you know, Commander Lakin has retired, and they're doing interviews for the new person. And so I was asked to represent the school district in those interviews, and that will be happening on Monday, November 16. So looking forward to being part of that and to helping represent our school district as we make this important decision for our new police commander. So that's all I have for tonight.
Well, thank you very much for that. Next, we'll have PGUSD staff comments on non-agenda items. Okay, and Sherry Dieter.
Thank you, Madam President and esteemed Board of Trustees. Can you all hear me okay?
Perfectly, thank you.
My name is Sherry Dieter, and I currently serve as the head teacher at Community High School, the district's alternative education site. Our site is served by 2 full-time experienced credentialed teachers and a part-time administrative assistant. Our tireless principal serves both Community High School and PG High. On October 20th, my teaching colleague announced his December retirement. thus opening a full-time teaching position for January 2021. Since that time, the district has not posted this position and has not offered clarity on their intentions for fully staffing this program. A once narrow window for a full-time qualified hire has now narrowed even further. Community high school serves English language learners, special needs students, students with learning differences, students with health and behavioral challenges, extremely creative students, and students who simply need a different environment in which to move, think, learn, and develop. This site requires stable, permanent, experienced, full-time teaching staff to engage these students. Hiring an instructional assistant or otherwise reducing the teaching staff would not support this program, whether we are distance learning or face-to-face. Please, if you are unable to fill this position with a credentialed hire by January, consider a long-term qualified sub and a broad search during the spring. Our enrollment fluctuates greatly over the course of the year. Those fluctuations often shift the classroom dynamics. Navigating the daily needs of these students can pose challenges, and it takes 2 full-time, experienced, credentialed teachers to make this program work. Please do not measure us at one moment in time or based on enrollment alone. This program is flexible, adaptable, and evolving. These are exactly the qualities we need as we meet our students when in-face learning returns, and we all have to adapt to their evolving needs. I can't do this without your support, and I can't do this without a full-time, experienced, certificated, permanent teacher. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Barbara Martinez.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Barbara Martinez, principal of Pacific Grove Adult Ed. I just wanted to welcome Brian Swanson back for 4 more years and Carolyn Swanson on formally. I'm excited to have you on board and work with you for the next 4 years. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was another hand up, but I don't see it now. Did it go down? Okay, at this time, I don't see any other hands up. We'll move forward, please, with individuals desiring to address the board. It's important to know that public comment on any item of interest to the public that is within the board's jurisdiction will be heard. The board may limit comments to no more than 3 minutes for each agenda or non-agenda item. A total time for public input on each item is 20 minutes. Pursuant to board policy 9323. Public comment will also be allowed on each specific action item prior to board action thereon. This meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting of the board conducted in public. Please note that the Brown Act limits the board's ability to respond to public comment, and the board may choose to direct items to the administration for action or place an item on a future agenda. All right, we're moving forward now to consent.
Oh, wait,
agenda.
Madam President, we have someone up here.
Oh, there she is. I'm sorry, I saw the name before. Carmisha Reed, please. I see your name is up now. Please speak.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carmisha Reeb. I am just here to echo Sherry's comments. I have a student in community high, and just want to reiterate the importance of advertising Brad's position. He did announce his retirement a long time ago, and I just want to make sure that everyone is aware, definitely my own and other parents' preferences, that we do in fact have another full-time teacher. I know with the COVID situation going on that everyone is concerned about kids falling behind and falling through the cracks, excuse me. But I want to make sure that community isn't overlooked. I know most students go to PGHS, that's where the focus is. But I, however, have been very grateful for the work and the programs offered at community that Sherry and Brad have put together. And they've definitely you know, ensure that my son, senior, is going to definitely graduate this year. And I know that wouldn't have been possible with a part-time teacher or Sherry working by herself. So again, just to reiterate, students need this option. Parents, families need this option to have community high school there. And I just want to make sure that it's getting all of the resources it needs to enable the success of the students that have to attend. So thank you for your consideration. And I would ask that you guys please, please prioritize finding a new hire for community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Reeb. Mara Leos?
Yes, esteemed board members, as the guardian of a community high student, I'm concerned about the possibility of the board deciding not to hire a full-time certified teacher to replace the teacher currently retiring. I believe community high needs to continue to have 2 full-time certified teachers because of the nature of this school. These students are more apt to be at-risk teens, students with limited English speaking skills, and students who are having difficulties in a mainstream school. Keeping 2 teachers on staff establishes engagement and a stability that is crucial to learning, as well as allowing for necessary individualism. We also need to look to the future. No one really knows what the long-term effect this pandemic and distance learning will have on our students. We need to be proactive in meeting the future needs of our students. I'm also concerned about the load a single teacher would have trying to cover all subjects in a meaningful manner, allowing the students to reach their full potential to graduate. Hiring just an instructional assistant would not be appropriate. This situation calls for a qualified, certified teacher. And I also want to add that my grandson has benefited enormously from the work that Sherry and Brad have done at Community High. He's going to be graduating this year, and he's going to be able to graduate early because of their help. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Paul Gutierrez, please.
So is this the appropriate time to talk about, you know, reopening and hybrid options, or is that going to be later?
That will be discussed later. That's under action discussion.
Okay.
So if you could hold those comments till later, that'd sure be nice.
All right, thank you.
Madam
Thank
President,
you.
that would be information discussion when we have the COVID update.
Information discussion. Thank you, Dr. Porras.
I did the same thing last.
I saw another hand. Is there someone else wishing to address the board? Okay. Next, we'll move on to consent agenda, and items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and or may have been discussed at a previous board meeting. There is no discussion of these items prior to the board vote unless a member of the board requests specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent agenda. Each item on the consent agenda approved by the Board of Trustees shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. And Dr. Porras, I believe there's a change to an item, please.
Yes, Madam President, we just have one adjustment to the certificated personnel assignment order number 6, which could be found on page 13 of the packet. There was a misprinting on one of the stipends, and so I wanted to make sure that was clarified. Michelle Bolwar was listed as an instrumental music coach eligible for that stipend. That was incorrect. She is a musical advisor. She's a vocal music coach. And so that was corrected. That has been corrected, and the correct version of this is now available online. She would still be eligible for the same stipend, $2,949, but as a musical advisor in the vocal section, not instrumental. So we just wanted to make sure that was clarified.
Okay, with that change in mind, do I have a motion?
I have comments on it before we go, please.
Okay, would you, Mr. Paff?
Well, I'd like to pull item H, and I have a question on item C. I think it's C. I'm sorry, consent B.
So you want to pull H?
Yes.
I'm just scrolling through to see H. So, oh, the
Healthy kids?
healthy kids.
Yeah, my question will be for Ralph at the time, but, and I apologize, Dr. Porras, I had that marked and didn't give you a question in advance. On item C, we have assignments and stipends. And to be clear, if we're not running the program, the stipend still exists, but we end up not paying it. But what if we're something in the middle? And I'll pick on poor Mr. Watkins, whom I like very much as a cross-country coach. You know, if his season goes 3 weeks, what are we doing with that? How's that getting prorated? You know,
if I may, I believe it does get prorated, but if you may, I'd like to ask Director Mankey to chime in just to make sure that I'm getting the clear information, since these assignments go to run under her. So I've just asked her to be unmuted. If she could jump in, that'd be great.
Good evening, everyone, and board member Path. In regards to the athletic stipends, some stipends actually have been split in the past. For instance, some football stipends where 2 people might take a 1.0 and split it in half at a 0.5. I think your question may be directed more towards a shortened season for athletics or conditioning. Is that correct?
That is correct, but it's across the board, right? All of these might be shortened seasons.
It could be. At this point, we haven't taken any direction to prorate the stipends. Stipends in general are, we don't really put a time to them. I understand there's a season, but some seasons, even in the regular realm of things, run longer than others. And sometimes they practice more often than others. Given this year of COVID, we really haven't gone down that road of prorating.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to pull consent B too.
Mr. Swanson, anything on any of this?
No, I mean, I'm happy to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the items pulled that were requested.
I'll second that. You want public comment first, Christy?
Yes. All right, public comment. I know also I need to digress for a moment. Amanda said she wanted to speak before, but I didn't see a hand until after we started. So we can go forward. Amanda?
Hi. Sorry about that. I didn't know we had to raise a hand. So good afternoon, or same as Martinez. Good evening, everyone. I recognize a lot of names here, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Amanda Coleman, and I graduated from Pacific Grove High School in 2014. Though I believe this has been brought to your attention already, I am here today because I never received my $1,000 Candia scholarship that I earned my senior year. In 2014, the PG Music Boosters would only disperse the money award directly to the student's university. However, this inflexible policy is discriminatory and highly disadvantages lower income students. This is because low income students generally rely on and receive FAFSA. The way that FAFSA calculates their grant allocation would essentially nullify the benefit of receiving an outside scholarship. So for example, like let's say I received $5,000 from FAFSA and then I contributed $5,000 as well to cover school fees, totaling in $10,000. If I received $1,000 from a scholarship and that was dispersed directly to the school, FAFSA would then edit the reward proportionally and reduce my award then to $4,000. This would mean that I would still have to pay the same $5,000 I had to pay before receiving a scholarship. However, according to the IRS policy concerning scholarships and grants, students who receive scholarships that fulfill a few requirements that are essentially fulfilled by any full-time student at an accredited university, do not have to report the scholarship money as income. Therefore, their FAFSA should absolutely not be taken into account the scholarship money when calculating their grants scholarship. Luckily, my financial aid office was aware of this and refused to accept the scholarship on my behalf. Because only low-income students receive FAFSA, the process of dispersing money directly to the university essentially negates the value of the scholarship for low-income students. The policy is discriminatory and it disproportionately affects low-income students, many of whom are not aware of the intricacies of the scholarship disbursement process. So even though the music boosters have recently dissolved, I'm bringing this to your attention so that you can ensure that other entities affiliated with PGUSD can rectify this oversight. I have several ideas for a solution if you want to discuss this further. Though in conclusion, I would implore you to help me receive the scholarship that I both earned and deserved. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for sharing tonight.
Madam President, if I may, we'll go ahead. I know that Principal Garcia is on this on the meeting tonight, and if Amanda would, we can try to make contact with her, or if she wants to call the school or email the principal, we'll make contact and try to get all of that taken care of. So,
who are you contacting?
Principal Garcia, he's the new principal at the school.
Oh, yes, I already spoke to Garcia. He directed me towards Afifi and Paris, and
Okay.
I also discussed with them, and they suggested I come here.
I see. Okay, well, we'll have to, this is a public comment, so the board can address it directly, but let me see what we can do, and we'll, they have your contact information, we'll try to resolve that for you, okay?
Thank you, Amanda. Ms. Mankey?
Let me
Your
see.
hand is
Okay.
up?
Yes. I wanted to acknowledge our 2 retirees that are noted on the certificated assignment order number 6. The first retiree is Brian Mello. He is a math teacher at our middle school and has spent 13 years in the district. And then again, basically the face of, who has been the face of our community high school, Brad Woodyard, who has taught in our district for 29.5 years. So kudos to them, and we wish them both a happy retirement.
And that would obviously be seconded by the board. So thank you for bringing that to our attention tonight. Big congratulations on those retirements. Okay, so let's get back to our consent item, which now has passed. So we are going to open that up for public comment regarding consent items. Anybody wishing to address the board? Okay.
See no hands.
Lou?
Oh, I do see now 2.
Okay. Could we unmute? There we go. Lou, thank you.
I'm Jen.
Sorry, I just have to go off the name on the thing. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity to talk. We would like to speak in support of Central Coast Kids and Families. We are so grateful for all your hard work and commitment to the special needs community. Your work over the years has proven your efforts towards inclusion, and our son has flourished. We have a special needs son who is in the 10th grade and at the high school. Since COVID, our son has experienced extreme social isolation because he fumbles with or removes a mask after a short time. Social distancing is negatively impacting his functioning, his language, his sleep, his physical well-being, and our family's ability to thrive. Because of his inability to keep a mask on, he can no longer do many of his previous activities, like going to a store, a playground, or a friend's house. He's not been able to leave the house, but for short drives to the airport where he stays in the car. We watch the airplanes take off, or walks or bike rides around our block, which excuses mask wearing under the guise of exercise. Our son needs an adult by his side to access his online classes. He cannot turn on a computer. He cannot type a password or turn on and off the microphone. He requires prompts from a person, not a computer image, in order to participate fully. Because my husband and I work full time, he was unable to attend school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as my husband was only able to flex his workout on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. This lack of engagement was causing undue harm to him emotionally, intellectually, and physically. We held an IEP in August to brainstorm ideas, and the only plan that we came up with as parents was to send him to Central Coast Kids and Families and have their staff support him on Tuesdays and Thursdays. At CCKF, he has a wonderful aide who supports him well and who he loves to work with. Distance learning has been hard on our son, and he's developed a stutter. He wakes at all hours of the night, and he is losing basic skills with regards to self-help. We're hopeful for the possibility of him attending the adult transition program with support of this Central Coast Kids and Family Aid. Since his classroom and his aide are unable to support him in person, the adult transition program is a welcomed option. We hope that you can support our CCKF aid at this program. Otherwise, he's unable to obtain FAPE. We will continue to pay out of pocket with the expectation of reimbursement at a later date. Since Lolita Garcia, the one who got in trouble and is currently being indicted, she's not been part of CCKF for over 2 years, and they have been successful in their receivership. And we don't understand why you must punish our children for the sins of adults. There is also no rule in California that requires outside organizations to be a nonprofit. Please help us help our son access FAPE and allow the CCKF aid to function in their limited capacity until the PGUSD aides feel comfortable or are mandated to return to in-person instruction. Until you're able to help my son access school through an aid, either through CCKF or PGUSD, he's really floundering. And we hope that you can overlook the discretions that happened so many years ago of one person who's not been involved. Thank you so much for your time and for your hard effort.
Thank you for your comments. Carolyn Swanson.
Good evening, everyone. This is Carolyn Swanson, not related to Brian Swanson. And I have something to say, but I was hoping to wait until Trustee Paff spoke. So will there be public comment after Trustee Paff speaks?
If I may, Madam President, yes, these 2 items that are pulled will become action items, and then they will have their own public comment section. So you will have an opportunity to comment on each of those individual pulled items.
Okay, excellent. I'll wait till then. Thank you.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second without item C and H. So then we'll consider consent passed. And now, Dr. Porras, guide me, please. We will go to C.
Actually,
I think you got to take a vote.
That was B, wasn't it B and H?
Was it, I had B and then I heard C.
Yes,
There was a comment, I think, on C, and then you're pulling B and H.
Okay, pulling B and H, thank you very
Is that
much.
correct?
And
consent item B will become action item K, and consent item H will become action item J, unless the board would like to reorder those new action items. But before you do that, if you would, go ahead and take a vote on the remaining consent items.
okay, I was getting that. All right, so roll call vote, please.
I'm sorry, who was the motion in the second?
The motion was Paff, seconded by Swanson.
Okay, so sorry. Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
Trustee Paff,
Aye.
Trustee Swanson,
Aye.
Student Advisory.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move forward to action discussion. And our first item is the adoption of the board policy for COVID mitigation. And due to the fact, I believe, Dr. Porras, since there are only 3 trustees here this evening, this will be discussed, but not in as much detail as previously thought, since it will go into more detail in 1 week. Is that correct, sir?
Well, actually, this is a first reading, so that takes place anyway. The information discussion item on COVID will be the shorter version because we have 2 items, only with 2 trustees missing. This is not that particular item.
Oh, okay then.
But
I'm notifying people of things.
no worries. It's a little confusing. It's a little confusing on our end. This item is being brought to you as a first read. However, the board is certainly able to pass as a final if you wish. It was brought to our attention by the County Office of Education, as it was brought to all of the school districts in the county, that it would be appropriate for the board to pass a COVID mitigation plan that would help make sure that the board addresses all the areas that are required by law if and when the time comes for the schools to reopen, in this case under the red tiers. So this is not something that is currently actionable because we're not fully open yet. However, by passing a policy it presents to the public that the school district is doing everything it can to make sure that the return of students to school at the appropriate time is safe and as safe as we can make it, and that we've done everything that we are required to do to open up. And so this is the first blush at that. I will say that this item is a boilerplate to a certain extent that most other districts will be looking at as well from the county office. And also our legal counsel has reviewed it and felt it was appropriate. I will say that this is going to be a work in progress because we're going to have to adjust it as we go once it's passed in the event that there are other laws or guidelines that come from the state or the federal government that require a change in the policy. So this mitigation plan it's going to look a little familiar because basically it's what's contained inside of our COVID operational plan, which the board already passed. And it will incorporate several elements of the new schedules that we have proposed for the different sites for hybrid when the time comes to open. So this is really looking at policies and practices that will come, that we've planned or we've already taken action on. And the areas that are included in this particular board policy are listed in the bottom of the cover page, but the areas included but not limited to student support, instruction and scheduling, grading, health and welfare of returning students, student absence and attendance accountability, social distancing, cleaning, disinfecting, and tracing, food services, and then the potential of having to reclose depending on the metrics. So I won't go over each individual item on this plan as it was already posted for the public ahead of time. However, I'm happy to take questions. And again, this is brought to you as a recommendation for a first read so we can take some questions and then we can bring it back to you for a final approval either at the next meeting or one of the December meetings.
Okay, so let's open it up for the board. Mr. Paff?
No, I don't have any comments on this particular item. Thank you, Ralph, for presenting. I recognize that it is a work in progress. It should be listed, I guess, as a first read. And I think we ought to push it into December for closing items. That'll gives us a little bit of time to look and also see where our plans are going. So
makes sense.
No questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Swanson?
Well, Dr. Porras pretty much covered what I would have asked already, that it was already reviewed by legal. So thank you for that. I figured as much. And that we sourced this somewhere else anyway. We didn't create this from whole cloth. What is I do want to know more, I think, for everybody's information really, or awareness. It's like, what do we typically use for a source when we're coming up with a document like this?
Typically, it's CSBA has a source called Gamut, and CSBA is sort of the go-to for templates for board policy and regulations. And this is a CSBA template that was also drafted by the Monterey County Office of Education. So they usually pull together their own legal team and they come up with these recommendations. And then it's up to individual districts to make it a little bit more personalized to each individual district. So sometimes you'll read statements that are pretty broad, and they're intended to be pretty broad because for policy, you don't want to get too detailed because you want to allow some flexibility within the scope of that policy. This is just a policy. And I did fail to mention that the items within this policy are active as long as we are currently in this COVID crisis. At some point in time, when things are done and we're kind of back to our regular practices, then this particular policy will request to have the board rescind this particular policy because it will no longer apply.
And CSBA, just so folks know, California School Board Association, because we throw a lot of acronyms around, but they're the folks that kind of the umbrella under which we all live. All right, I will go now for public comment, and I see Carolyn Swanson has her hand up.
Hello, good evening again. I do have a couple questions about this document. I have 3 questions. My first question, I was reading in the text, it says that this document shall supersede any conflicting language in existing PGUSD policies or administrative regulations. I just wanted to have it be crystal clear for me. This does not supersede MOUs between classified and certificated staff, correct?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then my second question is, was generated when I was reading page 512 on the document, and it said that, let's see here. It had some wording that made me want to also clarify and hear from you again that parents can still opt out for full distance learning of their own volition throughout this crisis time. We don't need to, they don't need to do something further to continue in full distance learning. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, the governor in his release for SB 98 allows parents to continue with full distance learning at this point in time. And there is no doctor note required. So they can just.
Great. I was hoping you would say that. And then on page 6, there was some information about gatherings on campus. And I wanted to ask, does that apply to, it said if there's going to be a gathering that's done in phases, that would need to be approved by the county superintendent or designee. And perhaps, Dr. Porras, perhaps you're the designee, but specifically I was thinking about those spring photos that happen at the primary grade levels, and they do exist in case anyone is curious.
And thank you for catching that, Ms. Swanson. Where it says county superintendent, that should have been district superintendent. There are a couple of those that are in there that weren't correct. So we don't have to go to the county for this. That's internal only. So that might help a little bit. And so we basically, in those cases, practically, the site principals would be in touch with me, and we would make sure that we're organizing those events so that they're as safe as manner as possible, much like we did with the fall photos.
Okay, thank you so much.
Not a problem.
Okay, thank you. I see Steve Thomas. We need him unmuted, please.
Yeah, I'm working on that. Well, there we go.
There he goes.
Great. Thanks very much. I want to appreciate all the hard work that the board staff and especially the teachers are doing in trying to work through things like this. I did want to ask a couple of questions at the end of my statement. You know, there has been a lot of work that's been put in starting way back in June and even before that, with the groups that the working groups that were working through on each one of the sites. And I know that there were a lot of great ideas that were brought up then, whether it was improvements, mitigation measures, overall program, safety measures that were included and things like that. I do want to bring up the fact that I have not seen a lot of those ideas brought forward. Lots of time and energy was put into those, and there were a lot of great ideas. And so I'm wondering what happened to those ideas as, you know, as a process, how they were reviewed and how they were brought forward to staff level, and then obviously to the board level for review. This plan, it looks like, you know, takes some really broad brushes, very, very high level, the 30,000 foot view, if you will, but there are no specifics in the plan. It talks about, as a for instance, the sanitization of facilities and equipment, and they'll be disinfected daily. But a district such as ours that has the resources that we do, why isn't there a specific plan in place where we're not going to have our teachers do this? We're going to go hire a company to come in, and specifically we're going to have the room sanitized, excuse me, in the mornings before kids come in between the two groups of kids, and afterwards. I mean, these are simple things that should be listed in this plan, even if it is a draft form. I don't see anything here about updates to the HVAC systems. I don't see anything in here about sneeze guards. There's a lot of very superfluous language about where the students are going to walk, and yes, we're going to ask them to do this, but there's no hard specifics. And I would think after such a long period of time that started back in May, that at this point in November, when there is a plan that's out there to go to hybrid in January, that these specifics would be locked in and would be completed. And, you know, every single board meeting, there should be an update with a list of deliverables that can instill some confidence in not only the teachers, but also the parents, that the school district is doing everything in their power to be able to create the safest environment as possible. I'm not saying that you're not doing that, but the public perception that's out there, and that's the business that I'm in, the public perception that's out there is that this stuff simply hasn't been done. And it could have been done, but we don't know about it. And so I would urge the board to ask staff to please include updates at every single meeting, even having a place on your website that lists, here are all the things that we're doing, all of the projects that we're involved with to make as safe an environment as possible for the kids going forward. That's going to go a long way to making the teachers feel safe. And then when the teachers are communicating to parents, the parents are going to feel a lot safer, because they're going to hear, you know what, the district is doing everything they possibly can to create this environment. And
I hate to interrupt here, but we
Thank you.
do have a 3-minute limit. So, and we're.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing up your concerns.
Madam
Sally
President.
Richmond.
Madam President, if I may.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I do want to respond just briefly.
Okay, please.
I think it serves for some clarity. If you go to the school district website under COVID and reopening plans, you'll find all of the detailed plans, in particular the COVID operational plan, which covers all of the very specifics in regards to cleaning schedules, sanitization, all of those pieces. This policy serves as a policy. It is not intended to be a specific plan. Really what this is saying is the district will make a plan to cover these broad stroke areas. So the policy is not designed to produce very specific actions that you're speaking to. However, this is a little bit backwards in that we've already designed a number of those plans already, and you can find all of those updates in the current plans on the reopening page of the website. And so you'll find all of those details there. However, we needed to have a policy in place that says the district will take these actions. So it's a little bit backwards, and the policy is coming much later. But it doesn't really matter at this point, because the school district is not open yet for students. So the policy is not intended to have specifics in it. The policy says we will do it. And then if you go to the plans that we've been discussing at every meeting and on the website, you'll find those specific plans listed and noted. And then of course, we'll be bringing some more specific plans at the next meeting in 1 week.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Porras. I appreciate that information.
Not a problem.
Okay, Sally Richmond, please.
Hi, Sally Richmond, Pacific Grove High School. This might kind of follow along with the previous comment. I see on page 31, it talks about the HVAC systems and installing MERV 8 filters. And I would just like in the future to kind of get a better idea of, is this available at all schools? Because I don't believe at the high school that we have any sort of central air, and I don't know if that's required. But I can tell you that in my classroom, the air gets pulled up into a heater from the floor and then blown out into the room. And so there's absolutely no air circulation whatsoever. On chilly days like this, when I had a classroom full of students, it would take about 20 minutes for the windows to get fogged up because of all the air that everybody was breathing out. So if we could just be a little more precise, I guess, or specific in terms of what's available based on the different sites. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Barbara Martinez.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say that our program in the childcare has been open since June. It's the only program besides special ed that has had small groups return to campus that's been open. And we've had instances where we've had substitute teachers having to come on campus. And I just wanted to share that I received a comment just yesterday from a substitute teacher who came on campus and said, how safe she felt, because we had all of our protocols in place, all of our safety protocols in place, that there was no question about the planning and the protocols that were thought out and put in place for our childcare. And I know that when we return to school face-to-face in all of our grade levels, that each site will have their protocols in place. And that's just basically all I have to say. All of our kids are safe. The safety of our kids is number one, and our staff. And that's communicated in our operational plan. I just wanted to shout that out.
Thank you very much for that. Any other hands? Yes, I see Paul Gutierrez, please. Thank you for being patient, and now's your chance.
Yeah, so I mean, we talk and have since March, we talked so much about safety. It's such an important thing. It's something that everybody's thinking about. And I know that everybody's putting a tremendous amount of effort to figure this out and how do we do this safely. And that's such kind of like an interesting word, you know, how do we do this safely now? And I can't help but think about it a lot, probably like a lot of the other parents and, you know, the board members and the teachers. And I was out the other day and I was up at the Target in Seaside, and there was a line outside. And then I drove by Home Goods and there was a line outside, and I got curious. And so I called Walmart, and I called Home Depot, and I called Target. And I asked them basically a set of questions. I asked, what's the max occupancy that they're allowed in under COVID restrictions right now? I asked, what's the total number of sales transactions that they're doing each day? And what was the average group per transaction? So how many people per transaction were they averaging? The amount of people allowed in each one of those stores is about 680 people. The amount of transactions that they averaged between the three stores was 3,500 transactions a day. And the amount of people per transaction was 2.25. So if we take those numbers, we could approximately fit the middle school and one of the elementary schools in a Target at one time, and that would be considered safe. 8,000 people go inside Target on an average day. 8,000 people going, touching things, breathing air. And that is considered to be safe. And then I can't help but wonder, how is it that we have to ask ourselves so hard, how do we do this safely? Not just us as a community, but us as a nation. Where have we put our priorities? Our priorities right now seem to be in the material and not the education of our children, because we can't set a guideline for what we can do to go shop and to buy things and to remodel our bathrooms and then make those things okay, and then find it impossible to find a way to give our children a proper education. Specifically, you know, for me, I have a kid in elementary school and I have a kid in middle school. And the impact at the elementary school level, I think, is significant. I think that there's a social impact at the middle school that's undeniable, but at the elementary school level, it is a significant impact, and we have no idea what we're doing to our kids in the long term. But
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
we can go to Target
limit on these, and
we can buy Christmas decorations and we can buy knickknacks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Steve Thomas, I also wanted to let you know that Jonathan Mejia has posted the reopening plans under the chat. So I think you'll find more specificity there if you can take a look at that. And as Dr. Porras said, we'll be having more discussion about this in a week. All right, any other hands at this point? Okay, I move that we adopt board policy 0470 COVID-19 mitigation plan for first and or final reading.
I think this
I'll
is a first
second.
reading.
Madam
It is
President,
a first.
Sorry.
it would need to be one of the two. Either the board will, no action is necessary if the board simply wants to have this as a first read, and I can bring it back in later December for a final action. So that gives more time to review it. Or
Okay,
the board can choose to go ahead and move forward and adopt this at this current time. So it's a one or the other. The title just gives you the option to choose one or the other if you like.
I prefer as a first reading, Christie.
okay, so you'd like it to come back in December then?
Yes.
So
Mr.
what's your
Swanson?
motion, Christie? Well, what's your motion?
My motion, I guess
do you
there's
want
no
to change your
motion. It's the
motion?
first read. Do we need a motion, Dr. Porras?
No, you can simply direct us to bring it back for a final reading later, and that's sufficient.
Okay, does that sound good for you, Mr. Swanson, too?
I mean, I'm happy to move it along and knowing where we were with the discussion and what we're doing beyond that already within the district. But I'm not, I don't necessarily want to swing against the tide if you and deep path look at this
Well, I think,
right now. Like, I understand that we're two of our board members are not here, so that's fine.
and John Paff, you don't think we could resolve this next week when we have full board in attendance?
Well, I think that I don't know what else is on the agenda for next week. And I think that 1 week, if there's public comment wanting to come back, I prefer to give them a little more time.
Okay, not for the specific, to me, this is a general and kind of laying out a blueprint, and the specificity of the sites that are site specific. I see that there'd be a lot more attention paid to that. So I don't mind waiting. I mean, we can wait till December. I don't see a need, but I'm cool with that.
I'm good. I don't need to push it or to rush it through either. I'm fine to just to hang on and wait for everybody else. I'm good with that.
Okay, so Dr. Porras, I would direct, please, on behalf of the board, that we bring this back, not next week, but the first December meeting, please.
Got it.
Can I ask one question before
You can ask
we
more than
go
one.
all the way on that? Well, I just want to make sure that we're not under any time constraints to get this done right away. Is that correct?
That's correct. We need to have it done prior to the reopening of schools. And at this point in time, that's not going to happen before then. I think if we have this done by the end of December, or even the first meeting in January, if there's going to be delay, but I would by December we'll be fine.
There we go.
No problem.
All right, I'm good.
Okay, so then that's set. Okay, 4. So next, please, we'll move to the updates to board regulations 6142.4, learning through community service, and 6146.1, the high school graduation requirements.
Thank you, Madam President. We not too long ago, the board, a couple years ago, the board revised the high school graduation requirements in one of the policies that's specific to graduation requirements to reflect the community service hour requirement for high school students to be 48 hours. That was all well and good, and we have been proceeding as proper to that board policy for the graduation requirements. However, we did end up noting that in a separate policy, there are a lot of little policies that kind of tap into each other. Well, one of the auxiliary policies, and that's the one that we're talking about this evening, 6142.4, did not have the correct hours noted way back when we did the change. And so the original community service hours that were noted in that policy was 24. So it was in conflict with the more revised policy later, which showed 48. So we're going to be doing a couple of things here this evening. The first is we need to correct the earlier board policy, the 6142.4, to reflect the 48 hours of community service required to receive a diploma. That's the only change that we need to make in that policy. So it's a change from 24 to 48. that would align it to our current graduation requirements. So we need to take that action this evening, if you will, and that's what we're doing here tonight. The next action that comes is going to be asking you to waive the policy that you now just amended to be corrected because of the current COVID crisis. But we couldn't waive an improper policy, so we needed to correct the policy first.
Okay, board comments on this, Mr. Paff?
Well, Ralph, for starters, does everything have to be 3-0 tonight?
Yes.
Okay. No, do we have any other policies that cite this that need to be updated?
We went with legal counsel and we found, we believe this is all correct now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Swanson?
Other than an observation, no, thank you, Dr. Porras, for explaining it, because when I was reading it the other night, I was like, well, how are you supposed to do any of this community service stuff? This is closed and this is closed and that is closed. And then it reminded me of one of those tests that at the top of it, it says, make sure you read this entire test before you answer any of the questions. And at the bottom, it says, don't answer any of the questions.
Right.
So you explained it really well. I appreciate that. So aside from that observation, I got nothing.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to move on the first half of this, and that would be to update. I would move that we update board policy 6142.4, learning through community service, and to change the 24 hours to 48.
You want to ask your student if they have any comments and public comment.
Oh, thank you very much. You must have been president for many years in a row. Thank you, Mr. Pat. Gabriella, do you have anything to add?
I do not have anything to add at this time, but thank you.
Never feel left out. Just know you're there. All right. Public comment, please. All right. Seeing none, I would, I don't need to read it again. That's my motion. So moved.
Second. John can have the second.
Okay, there's one more to come real quick, so we'll divide it up. Okay, so the motion was made by Christy Dawson and seconded by Brian Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Student advisory?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, for the waiver, it's still under B, or we?
Nope, we're going on to C now.
We're to C. All right, B is done. And C is now we're going to entertain, as Dr. Porras just pointed out, our new 48-hour commitment will be waived at this time. And that is 6142.4, learning through community service for Pacific Grove High School and Community High School. And the waiver is due to pandemic. So any more comments on that coming from Mr. Garcia or Dr. Porras?
I think there's just one other aspect to this that requires a little bit of explanation, and I'm going to ask Principal Garcia to speak up here. This is in regards to what happens to the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students because they can't work on their community service hours, which eventually accumulates to their senior year. And there is a plan for that. I think it would be appropriate for the public to hear that. So Principal Garcia, if you could explain that, that would be great.
Yes, thank you for that opportunity. So again, we are asking that we waive the community service hour requirement of 48 hours for our current senior class. And in addition, we're asking that for our freshmen, sophomore, and juniors, that the 48 hours be reduced by 12 hours. So essentially one school year, so that the graduation requirements for those 3 grades would be at 36. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So any comments on that, Mr. Paff?
Well, I'm not at a point where I'm willing to discard current graduation requirements. If we have a premise right now that we might be coming back in January through June, then I think that saying we have no requirement for this is premature.
Mr. Swanson?
I'm in favor of moving forward with it, but it doesn't sound like if we go to a vote on this with 3-0 required, that we're going to get there.
My question would be, is it possible to look at the waiver, what's at this point for seniors with everything else considered, and not look at 9th, 10th, and 11th graders currently? Is it possible to separate that out?
Yes.
I mean, because what we're asking, and I think Mr. Pratt brings up a good point, if we're back in school and you're a 9th grader to say there's no way you'll have a chance to get to 48 when they may actually have half a year and then obviously the other 3 years. I mean, that makes some sense.
I'm willing to withdraw the request for the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders at this time. Just to give you some numbers for our current senior class, we have 135 seniors. And as of 2 days ago, 50%, 67 of our seniors had not met the 48-hour requirement.
Well, it certainly seems to me there's so much stress on students anyway, and seniors is already so compromised as were last year's graduating class. I think for me, I'm absolutely comfortable with waiving this year, the 12th grade expectation, and let that fall to the wayside. Is that amenable to the other board members?
Well, okay, so you're suggesting that the seniors have 0 requirement.
Yes, that's what I'm suggesting.
Again, at this point in time, no, I'm not going to vote positively on that.
Even for the seniors?
Even for the seniors, yes.
Okay.
We have 7 more months of school right now. We're guessing as to a whole bunch of other activities, and you know.
Is it possible for us to just push this to the next meeting?
Good call, Brian.
Well, if this, the couple of ways that can happen, you can not take action on the item, or you can take action and it doesn't pass. And then a trustee can ask to have this item on future agenda to be brought back at the next meeting.
Well, I would vote to not take action because I think it's important that our comrades are back, and they'll be back in 1 week. So if that would work, I'd prefer.
Well, it sounds like we would have to actually take, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Porras, but it sounds like we would have to attempt to take action, and then for it to fail, and then for a board member to request that it be brought back to the subsequent meeting. Is that right?
Right. Actually, at this point, there's not even a motion to pass it. So if no one makes a motion, then it dies for lack of motion, and that's the end of it. And then during future agenda, you can make a request to bring this back, or someone can move and it dies for a second.
Okay.
And the person making the motion can then request it to bring it back if they want. Either way.
All right.
You're in the driver's seat, Brian. What would you like to do?
Well, I'm going to recommend that we not act upon this at this time, and then we can address it under future agenda items.
And I would like to say future agenda as in next week.
Yeah, when we get there, but yes.
Next week.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, and I think sooner than later, because again, I think there's a lot of pressure on kids today. So whatever we can do to look at this in a timely manner, I think is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we also have a public comment. Is this a good time for that, or do we need to do that since we're moving it?
Go ahead.
Well, if the item's not being discussed, then it's not an action. It's not an item for the board to consider. Technically, you don't need to have public comment on it because the item, it no longer exists on the agenda.
Okay.
But again, total board discretion. If you'd like to have public comment on it, you may, but it will be opened again next time.
I think it makes sense that we'll save that comment and when it's applicable in a week's time. All right, so now I think we may be headed to a little bit of deja vu here, because it appears that we're looking at a waiver of board policy 6142, learning through community service for the middle school.
Yes, Madam President, the same item that we just discussed now. However, we're making it applicable to the middle school requirements. And I can ask Principal Roach to speak to this if you'd like. However, I think you understand the nature of the item. So we'll go ahead and let it to the board to decide how you'd like to move on this.
Trustees, I would just like to say that we would like the board to consider waiving the 8th grade requirements for promotion, which currently sit at 16 hours. We have a little bit over 50% of our students that have met that at this time. We also would like to put forward a 75% of those requirements for our 6th and 7th grade students. That would be 12 hours. And we have every confidence that those students will exceed those hours because, as you know, our community is going to be in need of service, and our students are going to be in need of going out and completing that service. Our wish here really is to kind of take some of the stress off of our 8th grade students. Had a number of parent inquiries about the present levels, and that's why I put this forward for you this evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Roach, very much. And Mr. Paff, let's start with you, sir. He looks frozen again.
Let's do my lost people.
There you are.
There you go.
Can you start,
Did
John?
you ask me a question?
Yes,
go ahead.
sir. Since it's comparable to what we just discussed, would you like to make a comment on this?
Again, I think it's premature in the year. If we have any presumption that we're coming back to class, then I would say that cutting it to 0 is premature.
Mr. Swanson, would you be thinking that this is comparable to what we've just done and that we might push this off till next week?
That is correct, President Dawson. I'm not prepared to take action at this time.
All right, so we'll just let these kind of fade into the woodwork here. And thank you for sharing, Principal Roach and Principal Garcia, and we'll go after this in a week. We're going to move on now to Pacific Grove High School athletics conditioning. Principal Garcia, can you talk on this point, please, sir?
See if I can unmute him. Hang on one second.
He's nodding yes, he's ready to go.
There we go. All right, you should be.
Great, thank you.
Perfect.
We do have a slide deck to present this evening. And if we could have Miss Gayona also unmuted, our athletic director.
I just lost my screen here.
All right. So we are coming forward asking for approval to create an opportunity for our student athletes to begin conditioning at PG High in preparation for season 1, which is currently scheduled to begin December 14th. Next slide, please. California Department of Health has permitted schools to create opportunities for conditioning. These conditioning practices involve running drills, body weight resistance training. It also specifies that we will conduct these practices with no contact, no shared equipment, and no competitions at this time, either inter-squad or with other schools. It's also important that we create stable pods within each team, within each sport, so that we minimize the risk of transmission. Next slide, please. As I stated at the very beginning, under CIF We are anticipating that we will be able to start season 1 December 14th. Now, no decision has been made by the state at this time, but the CIF is working in conjunction with the state in hopes that we can begin at that time. We normally have 3 seasons within a given school year, and they have been condensed to 2 seasons. The second season is slated to begin late February and into March. Next slide, please. Under season 1, which is the season we are focusing on for our conditioning, we have cross country, cheer, football, volleyball, and water polo. And for season 2, you can see all of the remaining sports. Next slide, please. So participation in conditioning practice is voluntary, and students who are not participating in conditioning practices will not impact their participation for their particular sport during season 1. Our pods, we're looking at to have no more than 14 students per pod. These will be determined by the head coaches, and we will have 1 to 2 coaches per pod. Next slide, please. Some of the safety procedures that we will be following. Athletes will wear their masks at all appropriate times. So arrival, waiting for their practice to begin, if they need to be excused to use the restroom, and upon leaving at the end of their practice. Coaches will wear their face coverings at all times. Athletes will be directed as to when they can take off their masks, and no face shields, meaning they cannot substitute a face shield for a face mask. You can wear the face mask and then a shield for the coaches. Our athletes will not wear the shields. That'll be a little too restrictive and potentially dangerous for them as they're out there running or doing body weight exercises. We will have screening of both staff and athletes. And if a student and or a coach is unable to participate because of failure to pass the health screening, we will notify the parents immediately, and as well as the athletic director and administration. Next slide, please. So we're going to have kids arrive at various locations throughout the campus, and they will also leave through a very specific plan, which will mitigate them interacting with other teams and sports on campus. We want them to arrive in time to ensure that we can provide the health screening. We're going to ask that parents or guardians who bring their student athlete to campus, if they arrive in a car, that the parent or guardian stay in the car and do not congregate on campus. As soon as practice is over, the expectation will be that students leave campus immediately. And as I stated, pods will have separate entry and exit areas and schedules. And this is also very important. When our athletes are on campus, the campus is closed to non-school employees. Next slide, please. Here's a map of our campus, and we've given you a general idea of how we will use the facility. We have plenty of space. We will be using the stadium, the baseball field, softball field, and if necessary, the upper field, Forest Grove. We will also be using the pool and the tennis courts if necessary. All conditioning practices will be outside, no indoor conditioning practices. And the arrows indicate how we will have students enter and exit. So they're not all coming through, let's say, the lower parking lot. Next slide, please. we're going to need the help of parents. If your son or daughter is sick, we're going to ask them, please don't bring them to practice. Students and coaches will be excluded if they have symptoms, or if a household member has symptoms. If in the event one COVID positive case in a pod occurs, we will require the entire pod, which includes the athletes and the coach, to stop practicing for 14 calendar days from the time it was reported. If we have one COVID case in 2 or more pods in a given sport, we will require the entire sport to stop participating. And it is critical that our student athletes and coaches and all others follow our regulations to ensure that we can have a successful time during conditioning. Next slide, please. We are in the process of developing days and times for when practices will take place. We surveyed our students and they responded as to whether or not they would like to participate in a sport, and then also indicated if they will be participating in conditioning. So the numbers you have here are the participation numbers, and the majority of these students have all indicated that they will also participate in conditioning. Next slide, please. And that might be the last slide. All right. So our athletic director and myself are available for any questions.
Okay, we'll start with the board. Any questions, gentlemen?
No questions. To what you have. Thank you very much, Principal Garcia and AD Gaona. The truth is, the last minute I said I think we're premature, and here we might actually be a bit late. But I recognize Paul Gutierrez's point. If we're going to start along these lines, one, is the high school the only group that's going to be allowed to do this? Are we going to push into the middle and lower schools, elementary schools? And two, if we allow, one thing, it's such a split. It's so disjointed that the state says on one hand, well, you can't do X, but you can do Y. Clearly, we're going to quickly be in a position where someone, in fact, does get sick. What do we do then? How does that affect the rest of it? How does it affect going back? I really appreciate this plan. I think that we should move forward on it. But I also think that there's some additional things to consider and really try and push down, particularly as we say into the other schools. So thank you for presenting.
You're welcome.
Brian, do you have anything to add, sir?
Yeah, well, I'm a little confused by what Trustee Paff was saying, when it comes to, what we're talking about here, these are almost, if not entirely, outdoor activities. I think there's a big difference between what happens here and what happens at Target or Home Depot with a 30-foot ceiling and God knows how many tens of thousands of square feet, and what happens in a 50-year-old classroom too. I think it's important to note that. But as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Garcia, but these are all outdoor activities, are they not?
Correct. We are not providing any indoor conditioning. So for instance, our volleyball team, which would normally play indoors, they were going to be outside on one of the fields, or if they would like, they could use the tennis courts.
Okay. And at the risk of, I won't over-explain myself. Can we throw slide 3 back up again real quick? I just wanted to get another look at slide 3 because I had a question that related to that.
Christy, I have one more too when Brian's done.
Okay, And then I've got some, perfect. Mr. Mejia, are you getting that back up? Slide number 3?
Yeah, it's just gonna take a little longer.
Okay, do you want to ask your question, John? Oh, here it comes.
Here we go. Yeah. No, that's not the one. Sorry. It was the one that went like season 1 and season 2 was up on there.
That had the 2 lists of the
Yeah.
sporting.
I should have written down my actual specific question, but I just wrote down, go back to slide 3.
There it is.
There we go. There we go. It's page 4, I guess. So as I'm looking at this here too, so season 1 conditioning practice for season 1 only at this time. That what happens with season 2, what that indicated to me was there could be more than just conditioning practice for season 2, and that's yet to be determined. Is that a safe assumption?
So the reason why we're not having season 2 go at this time is we want to ensure we get off to a safe start. We also have to look at the sheer number of students and making space available to everybody.
Great. All right. Thank you. I just wanted some clarification on that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. John Paff? John, you said you had another question. Are you there? There you go.
Brian?
Yes. Yes, John.
May I interject? I don't know what transpired in the 35 seconds it felt like that I was gone. So to be clear here, right? We're going to start conditioning, and then December 14th, you may begin cross country, you may begin cheer, football, volleyball, and water polo as seasons, which is competition, correct?
I don't think so. I think it's just conditioning practice, not actual competition. But
Okay.
Principal Garcia is that correct, Principal Garcia?
So December 14th, we're slated to begin the season. Games are not scheduled until January at this time, but we are still waiting on the state to allow high schools public high schools across the state to actually participate in games. They still have not changed the language that currently exists under the California Department of Health.
So just crystal clear here. So on December 1, we start conditioning. If California changes some language, then December 14, potentially there's a football game. Never mind, it hasn't been scheduled yet.
No, the games have been scheduled. They're scheduled to begin in January. The season
Okay. So January 11 or whatever the first Saturday is, potentially there's a football game.
Correct.
Which starts with a huddle and ends with a tackle, and pretty much that's all within 6 feet.
You lost me on the last part there.
Well,
me too.
Mr. Paff?
Yes.
He's saying it's pretty hard to stay 6 feet apart and tackle someone.
That is the thing that the state needs to waive. They need to waive the requirements that they have instituted under conditioning. They would have to set all those aside in order for us to have any type of competition.
Yeah. So, Principal Garcia, I'm all in favor of conditioning. It's all set. You can stay distance apart. And this goes back to, and I'm sorry, Brian, I was unclear, but we're actually talking about playing a game, and when you see wrestling down there on a list anywhere, it's very hard to wrestle with any sort of precautions. So these are mixed. It's very mixed signals to me. But in any case, I'm strongly in favor. You're going to set precautions for at least the conditioning aspect, and we'll end up seeing back when we start a real season how that's going to work.
Okay,
and again, to reiterate, and all of this, any kind of actual contact, sport, games, matches, or anything like that is predicated upon permission from the state to do that.
Correct.
So
And there
we're
is
not. doing that. That's not up to the district or this board to make that decision. That comes from the state, and then we can decide if we want to follow through with the state's clearance. Is that kind of on track?
There is one more group that I left out, and that is the Monterey County Health will also have to sign off on the season starting. So it's at the state level, and then it goes to the county level.
But for the current time, I mean, obviously in the future, there will be things we have to look at. But currently for conditioning, I want to thank you for the good work you guys have done, the maps, everything for us to see. I think it's so critical that our students get to interact and have some action besides sitting at home by a computer. So I am very much in favor of moving forward with this. And of course, we're trusting good judgment and a lot of thoroughness and following through with the conditioning components. So thank you so much. Now we have a few hands up, so we'll go ahead and get started. The first hand up, please, Nathan Wood.
And before, I just want to interject here real quick too, as we go to public comment, just as a reminder to everybody that there is a 3-minute limit on public comment, and I will be the nasty man with the
Be the
clock.
timekeeper for us. Thank you very much, Mr.
Christy, do you want to ask Gabriella first?
Gabriella, do you want to add something before we go to public comment, please?
I just want to say that I very much appreciate like all the work put into this plan. I really think it's a great idea because obviously, yes, there are concerns about once we start competing, but again, that falls to the state, not to us at this moment. And at this moment, all we're asking is for small controlled groups to be able to exercise in open air without shared equipment, without contact, and with all the necessary precautions. And I think it would really be great for the morale of all the students, not just morale, and also the health of all the students to be able to get out and exercise. So hopefully this is able to go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Very valuable comment. Mr. Wood, if we could go to you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. So with I can speak for the football community, at least the people that I've talked to, friends and other, football players, that we are ready and willing to abide by any COVID protocol that you guys put into place. We just kind of want to get out there anyhow. That's all I got to say.
I love that in the background are sports jerseys, which just strengthen your comments. So thank you very much. Jameson Paul, please share.
Hi, my name is Jameson Paul. Most people know me as Jamie. I'm a senior right now at PG High, and I would just like to say what I believe like the importance of putting this into motion is, not just for me, but for the rest of the athletes, the student athletes at our school and in our community, and especially for seniors, since we've had to deal with a lot this year. We're probably not going to get any dances. We didn't get a homecoming. Prom's not looking great. We might not even get to spend the rest of the year with a lot of our classmates who most people, I'm not originally from here, but most people have grown up going to the same school with a lot of their friends since preschool even. But yeah, I understand that the number one concern is the students' health and safety. And I really thank you guys for putting together such a great, and what looks like to me, I feel like that's probably about as safe as the plan can get. You guys obviously put in a lot of hard work, but this really means a lot to the athletes here at Pacific Grove High School, putting this plan in order, because it really gives us hope. To a lot of the football players, at least, I know we didn't think in June when last year ended, a lot of us didn't even think we'd have a chance to have a season. And this, like, I know that the season's still up in the air if we're even going to have it, but getting conditioning in order it just gives us hope. And a lot of like the seniors at least might want to turn this into their career, or maybe not into their career, but they want to play as long as I can. I know that at least one senior wants to have film that he can have to send out to colleges so he can play. Like we just want to play and do what we love, and we just want some hope. That's all I'm saying. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Mr. Roach.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick perspective from the middle school. There's very limited guidance from the state. And I reached out to the MTJAL commissioner, and we were the first school to actually contact them. She has a feeling that for our league this year, It is not going to be a competitive league at this point, but we're going to be meeting in the next couple of weeks, and I hope to bring something back to the board a little bit more concrete sometime in December. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Chavez?
And this is Mr. Chavez, so good evening.
Oh, okay, good. Look at dual Chavez's. Thank you.
You can actually see the face this time. So I did want to encourage the board in terms of the support as a parent of students who participate. And I'm encouraged to hear the plan and the fact that we are joining schools in our area like Monterey High School and Carmel High School in getting conditioning started for the mental well-being of our students. So I appreciate your time and hope you vote yes on this.
Thank you, sir. Erica Chavez.
I just respectfully ask whichever way this goes, if it sounds like the high school students will be utilizing the high school facilities, that it's clear and well posted for those of us that have younger children so that we can maintain the safety of our families and know when it is safe for us to go for our recreational time as a family. That would be really appreciated.
Okay, good point. Thank you so much. Steve Thomas, sir.
Good evening. Thanks again for taking my comments. I want to echo what Erica just said. If there's a way to be able to post the schedules for the community so that when the high school students are not using the facilities, we will, as a community, will know if and when those facilities are available for safe and cohorted use outside of the high school sports. I urge you guys to approve this. It's a solid plan. I do also appreciate Principal Garcia's comments regarding no other people besides the high school teams and their coaches and administrators will be on campus when this is going on, so that there's a clear delineation between high schoolers utilizing the school site and then once they leave, if the community then chooses to come on, then that's something that is their own choice. But I appreciate those comments, Principal Garcia. And the last thing is, I want to applaud Mr. Roach for reaching out, because I know that there are a number of middle school athletes that are interested in something similar. And if this does work at the high school level, I'd urge the sharing of those processes so that our middle schoolers can also have something to be able to do from an athletic standpoint, even though our system is different than the high schools. We still operate under the same CIF and CCS rules. And so it would be great to be able to have that available, at least in some form, for our kids going forward into 2021. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Jameson, Paul, I know you spoke. You have something additional to add?
I just asked him to unmute. He'll be a second.
Okay. All right. He kind of was there and then he wasn't, and then he was there and he's not. All right. Elliot, can you speak, please?
Hi, yes. Thank you so much for giving me a quick chance. I just wanted to echo similarly to what was said about the middle school, just to see, I know there's not formalized sports for the elementary school, but it would be great to know if there were opportunities for school-sponsored exercise, maybe through the PE class instead of videos. Just something to think about if we are starting to, if the high school does go as well as possible. And I'll just give 2 thumbs up. I'm really happy to hear you guys are considering that, because I do think this is really important to our high school students. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Those are all the comments now. Do I have a motion?
Ms. Dawson, may I make one more comment before you?
Absolutely, please.
I also, it's very important to acknowledge our athletic director, Mrs. Gaona. She is a full-time teacher and our athletic director, and has been putting in countless hours coordinating with our students, our coaches, and just great appreciation for her part and leadership in getting this going.
And I did unmute her phone. So if Laura Lee, if you'd like to say a couple words, you're more than welcome to.
Well, just thank you. And I'm really glad we could get this together. We are one of the last public schools in our county to get kids back on campus to get the exercise in. I mean, I have my own high schooler and that's not easy to do as parents. And so I really appreciate all of the support from the parents as well. I think this is a great way for us to step up and look at, in the future, what are some options that we have when we have very limited options? And so I'm excited for the kids. We've had a great amount of positive feedback from them, and I'm excited to see all of them, even though they're not really playing their sport quite yet. I'm excited to see them get off their couches and come out into the sunshine and fresh air and see each other in a positive and healthy way. So I really appreciate all of the positive feedback that you guys have given. And it's a crazy time to become an AD. So I appreciate everyone's patience too.
Well, and on behalf of the board, a huge thank you. It's hard when we're not all sitting in a room and your face is there and then you disappear or whatever. So thank you so much for all the work you're doing on behalf of our students. It's absolutely critical and we thank you.
So before making a motion, and I'm happy to make a motion to accept the athletic conditioning in the grant scheme here. Principal Garcia, absolutely, we're saying the campus will be closed. So if you have somebody running football, the tennis courts are closed. Is that correct?
Correct. We're going to be operating as if school were open and students are present the entire time. And so outside non-staff, non-district members will need to stay off of campus until we're clear.
Okay, and we have a mechanism thought through as to how to enforce that?
You're looking at one of those mechanisms. I'm going to be on campus walking around a lot, getting in my steps.
As well as 3 clones. There's a lot of entrances. I think it's a good idea. I think it's really a good idea if we are setting the football field aside and setting 2 of the other fields that we try and keep people a little bit further away. I do think that we may be coming back in a week saying, hey, we'd like some temporary help here to help out. And if that's the case, great, let us know. We'll see how that goes as well.
Thank you.
I make a motion to accept the PGHS athletic conditioning plan.
I would like to second that, but I also want to just add a quick comment to my second. I appreciate all the comments tonight on this, and most especially the students who stepped up and spoke tonight, because I just like it. I love it when I see some of the students stepping up too. I know sometimes it can be easy and nerve-wracking and to get up there in front of the mic. So I just wanted to add that to my second.
All right, well, let's move forward with the roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Student advisory?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so Pacific Grove High School athletics conditioning passes 3-0. All right, next we are moving on to the National Association of State Procurement Officials, NASPO, for Value Point Master Price Agreement for computer equipment peripherals and related services. Mr. Mejia, are you going to speak to this, sir?
Let's see. I'm not sure if the board has any particular questions about it. This was something that should have been included in the packet that went May 7th regarding the Chromebook purchasing, but it was referenced in the packet, and it was referenced in the quote, but the actual documents were not included. So after consulting with legal, we're bringing it back so that the board can have these documents.
Do we have any comments, Mr. Paff?
No, it's the most convoluted contract in the world, but other than that, no. I mean, it's got 3 amendments and it was written in 2011, but no, it's fine. It's well vetted.
Mr. Swanson?
I've got nothing to add to that. Thank you.
Nor do I. So if we could open it up, any public comment on this matter? This appears to be a quick one tonight. Gabriella, any comment?
I do not have a comment, but thank you.
Of course. Okay, I move that we accept the National Association of State Procurement Officials, NASPO Value Point Master Price Agreement of Computer Equipment, Peripherals, and Related Services.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Christy Dawson, seconded by Brian Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Paff,
Aye.
trustee Swanson,
Aye.
student advisory.
Aye.
So the motion passes 3-0. All right, moving on. We're looking please at the agreement with Monterey County Office of Education regarding electronic distribution of direct deposit pay advices. Is Song going to speak to this?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. I think what you just read out, the phrase, exactly what it is. So instead of printing pay stubs, we're going to replace it with electronic pay advisors, meaning employees will have their, using their own employee's ID, will go into the private email to get this, the kind of document. Is for many purposes. One of which is obviously to save employees time, to save the district's postage, because currently with COVID-19, we mail every piece of document, but also employees will have the convenience of accessing this document anywhere after they leave or they retire or they resign. They will have that. Our first choice is to have the employees a private email. If the employee does not have that or does not want that, default is the district's email account. For those employees who are getting regular checks, not direct deposit, will stay the same, unless of course they choose to now to go direct deposit. That's in a way the nutshell of this item.
All right, very well said. And I love the fiscal impact of saving a couple of thousand a year. That's what should be the lead story in this particular item. So I love that. Anything added, Mr. Paff?
Song, the only question really is there any pushback there? Do the employees, teachers and staff matter?
We sent out a survey. We sent out not really exact survey, but we sent this email item to all the employees. It's just a couple of questions. From payroll, what I heard is that they're getting a lot of, because employees still have to put out the form, put down the individual's or private email, and we're getting a lot of them back. The last I heard is probably half, 50 to 60%. So I didn't check the last couple of days. So other than that, we have not heard about anything.
Okay. So this isn't an option, this will be the only way, right?
That's correct. That's correct. We can either, just for information, the districts, a lot of these districts have been doing that since Escape is in place. District is just figure with technology. People would want the convenience, anywhere out of the country, let's say they do financing of the home, instead of getting a pay stub, the most recently they can log into the individual's email account is password and email employees username protected, right? Because it's employees ID. The question is more like, where do they get the employees ID? It's actually not on the pay stub. A lot of people not paying attention, they're not really worried about the employees ID, but it's there. If they have questions, just email us. Payroll is very, very responsive. Just say, okay, here's the employee ID.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Paff?
No, thank you. It's
Okay.
simple.
Mr. Swanson?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Okay. Gabriella, any comments on this one?
No, no comments.
Thank you so much. I'll open it up for public comment now, please. Looking like there's nothing for that. So can I hear a motion?
Make a motion to accept the wrong item. Electronic distribution of direct deposit statements.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from John Paff, seconded by Brian Swanson. We'll now have a roll call vote.
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Paff,
Aye.
trustee Swanson,
Aye.
student advisory.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes 3-0. Next, we'll move on to board calendar or future meetings.
Oh, we have action item H still, Madam President?
Yeah, but I thought I had that as J and K. I'm sorry. We can go ahead to those first.
Well, there's
No, there's actual action item H, which is the contract for the audit.
Oh my goodness sakes, I got so excited. Thank you so much.
Not a problem.
All right, so next, contract for the audit of the district financial statements and performance audit of the bond fund. And
Thank you, Madam President.
Still on.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is an important item. We do need independent auditors. This is for, we went out for a request for proposals. Last year was a bridge in a way because with COVID, the closure, we didn't have enough time to put our RFP together, to advertise, and also to review the proposals coming back. So the board approved a one-year bridge, and this is for the 2021 fiscal year through 22-23. And then we as a administration can always come back if we do feel like the recommendation to renew for another 3 years, but it's our choice. At this point, it's only for 3 years, the contract. If the board approves this, the new firm will start reviewing the 2021 in the spring, typically is around April, and then finalize the audit in October. So that's always the cycle. So we went out for RFP on September 29th. We got 3 proposals. The deadline was the period of 26th through 30th for review. And we made it very clear in the RFP that we'll send a recommendation for approval on the November 12th board meeting. The 3 proposals are listed here: CLA, Clifton Larson Allen LLP, Christie White Inc., and Ike Bailey LLP. Ike Bailey's actually is merged with VTD, Verifirmate, Try and Day. The district had worked with them for a number of years, and the last couple of years they merged with Ike Bailey. So in terms of the items that we review, not just obviously the fee is important, but also we look at analysis of the written proposal, very thoroughness, meeting all the requirements of the RFP, also previous experience and the reference, obviously. Previous experience is good with us in terms of, whether they're CPA, what kind of audit reports they have done, and whether they have done peer review as well. The other point that we look at also operational experience, that would be, icing on the cake, so to speak, if the district, the firm has worked with us rather than starting from scratch, from all the giving them the items and all those. Not that we don't do it anyway, it would be helpful for, the team that is really know the routine and what kind of financial software that we have. So those are the items we look at. Looking at the 3 firms listed on page 156, the lowest in terms of what's disclosed on the proposal is Christie White, but they have not included travel time, and they are based in San Diego. Typically, they come like 3 or 4 members with a partner. 3 could be a manager, auditor, plus 2 staff auditors and the partner. The partner may or may not come every day, but if they come 3 to 4 days, and you can just add up the cost, travel time and hotel stay, and of course, all the mileage and so on and so on. So our recommendation at this point is to go with Ike Bailey. They have not increased the fees for the last, at least when I look back several years. So the total cost is $38,920, and that's include the bond performance audit of $4,500 per year. Any questions about this item?
Mr. Paff.
Well, over the last couple of years, I've been very unimpressed with Ike Bailey. You know, what they've pointed out is trivial to the point of being trite. And I don't really feel like they're doing it. You know, if we have a clean bill of health, then say we have a clean bill of health and don't piddle around. However, it seems like it's still the best choice that we have. So let's move forward on it.
Mr. Swanson?
I just have a question for Trustee Path. This isn't meant as a criticism, it's a honest question, is like, do you think that they're missing something, or do you think they're digging up scraps just so they have something to say?
I think they're digging up scraps so they have something to say. I think that we are so ridiculously clean that someone comes up and says, well, you didn't cash a check fast enough. Hey, you know what? That's not a complaint. That's barely something to be said to somebody in passing in the hall. In the future, please do this in 2 months instead of 3. You know, don't waste our time with that. Just give us a clean bill of health. So.
Got it. All right. I just wanted to, I thought that's where you were going with it. I just wanted to be sure. I don't have any questions about it, just an appreciation again for the detail in presentation of the notes on the various bids. I know that that's, well, within the district, it's a common thing. I know sometimes with other organizations, it's not. The details aren't always provided. So Song, I appreciate you spelling it out for us and what we're really looking at here and why you're recommending what it is that you're recommending. Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree. Song, I think it's so important, like you say, the historical perspective that you're not starting from ground zero. The travel piece is huge and absolutely will balloon the other one up. So even though Mr. Paff has these considerations, I also say we would go with Ide Bailey and go with the district recommendation.
Thank you. Just for the record, it does not mean the other firms will not dig up the same thing as Ide Bailey does.
I got you.
Understood.
It's important you're happy, Song. It's very important. Top of the list. All right. So we are at this point approving the contract, or would we actually say Ide Bailey within this recommendation, Dr. Porras?
I would think you go ahead and include Ide Bailey to make sure that it's clear.
Okay, so we are now voting. Oh, we want public comment first. And Gabriella, what do you feel about it?
I don't have any comment, but thank you for considering me again.
I'm going to keep doing it now that Mr. Paff has me on the right track. Public comment on this, please. Anyone? Okay, so we vote to approve the contract with Ide Bailey for the audit of the district financial statements and performance audit of the bond fund. Any motion on that?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were moving. Were you moving?
Move. I just should have said move, okay? Seconded by Brian?
Seconding, yep.
Okay, so this was so moved by Christy Dawson, seconded by Brian Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Student advisory?
Aye.
Thank you.
So motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Porras, I would go to board calendar and then back to the items pulled, sir.
That's correct, Madam President. In regards to the board calendar, there are no changes there. However, I do have a question for you. This does not require action, this part. We do have listed on the calendars coming up in the second half of the year, open house events, choral festival, concerts, honor nights. All of those are completely up in the air, obviously, for the conditions that we are currently in. So our assumption is that at this point in time, those will only happen if we are able to conduct them. And if not, then the understanding is that they will not take place, even though they're still on the board calendar. We don't want to remove them because if the event we can actually host it, we want it still listed on there. But we just want to make sure the board understood that and the community.
Okay, that's important. Like everything else, it could evaporate via COVID.
Absolutely. So otherwise, there's no action required.
Okay. Any public comment on this item? Do I have a motion?
No action required, Madam
No
President.
action required. Here we go. All righty. So now we'll go back, and I believe it was item C, which now becomes action item K.
And it would be consent item B, I believe.
Consent B, correct.
Consent B. All right. So this was a recommendation, order number 6. Okay.
Right.
So that's from Billy Mankey, please.
I think she needs my question, right?
Yes.
So the concern that I have is stipends are set, and in a normal year, we sort of know the timeframes in which they are predicated, and there's no such thing as a prorating, and we don't really worry about it. However, this is not normal. So I think somehow we have to integrate into this, and whether or not it's part of a separate MOU or actually it would have to be, it's part of the bargaining agreement to begin with. How does one work around, things are the flexibility that we're trying to achieve with everything else. So I don't begrudge, anyone if they're trying to run a season, their stipend. On the other hand, it might be a 1-week stint, and that would seem a little odd.
Board Member Paff and President Dawson, this is totally new territory for us. I know you're very much aware of that. We are starting our conditioning now, so the coaches are working, they will be working. And as I think through it, I understand what you're saying. There's not as many games, at least we don't know that yet. And maybe if a season got canceled, then we would look at reducing a stipend. But at this point, we're trying to move forward. And I know you understand that. They're putting in time, and in many ways they may end up putting in more time because they have to have kids in pods, and they have to they're going to be cleaning equipment. They have to make sure that kids aren't sharing equipment. I believe it's a lot more monitoring than in the past. I think the responsibility level there is greater, but I do understand. I understand. I hear what you're saying. We just have not thought of that, and I think to do it actually, unless a season was canceled and we canceled a stipend or split it in half, something like that, I think we would need to meet with our union leaders and negotiate that, because it is a contractual item.
It is a tough predicament, but I certainly understand. I mean, because you're right about the cleaning and the fixing, but if seasons are actually canceled, I think we might want to take a look at that. I mean, even like, is the gate coordinator, is there a possibility that's a fairly large stipend, and when does that meet? I mean, when you're not having regular classes, how is that identified and followed through with? Because it's not just coaching. I mean, there's yearbook, and that's normally a class, and how that meets at lunchtime when there's no lunchtime. I mean, those are tough calls.
Right. I believe on the other items, other than the coaching, I think they're meeting with those students, at least right now, we're in this purple tier, they're meeting with them virtually. And it's amazing. You've seen some of the things these kids do in a virtual format. So, but it does take coordination and a responsible, adult or teacher working with those students.
Okay.
I want to just another observation on all of this too, and I totally understand where your questions stem from, John. But I think also it's like, like Billy was pointing out, it's such uncharted territory, and will some of these things even happen? I mean, most of them are in some way or another. They are, but it's like, it's not like people are lining up to take these positions either. And if all of a sudden we go to people and say, yeah, all right, well, we might need you and it might pay this, but it could end up paying this, I think it makes it that much more difficult for us to find people that are willing to do it. So that we have to consider that too. But I totally understand and appreciate where your question comes from. Absolutely.
I don't see a clean system. The dilemma is, you know, do you put something fuzzy in there and say, look, if we'll all agree that if it all goes to heck and you're 1 week in, then we work something out, or is that even possible? And I think that's in the MOU. I don't even think we have to change this today, but as you're continuing to make discussions, you know, if it comes up, well, yeah, I don't know where to go with it actually. Okay, I'll accept that. I've made my observation. We'll move forward.
Yeah, it's a tough one at this particular time. And I know even like, you know, there's, I don't know. I think we have to just move forward. I think we just do the best we can. And we're like everything else that's been going on since March, moving into the unknown. So, and we certainly appreciate everybody's work on behalf of the students. So, all right. So what do we need to do here, Dr. Porras? Do we?
Motion, a second, and a vote will be fine.
Yeah,
Well, then
you
let's
can
do
open
that.
up for public comment. And
Okay,
carry on.
public comment on this. Okay, Larry Hadquist, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if you're going to think about prorating, I was a coach for many years, coach mock trial, coach golf, things like that. There were many seasons where we would make CIF and the season would literally get doubled, like in terms of time, and the pay didn't change at all. So if we're going to start thinking about prorating, I just think that maybe think about adding stipends later, like, you know, if we get back to a situation where we can actually compete in CIF, where coaches can get paid for those extra hours as well.
President Dawson there, may I address that directly to Mr. Hagquist?
Of course.
Dr. Hagquist, you know, for me, it's more along the lines of what happens if you have something that crashes and burns for whatever reason within two to 3 weeks. Then you get into a very strange scenario. You know, by the 50% mark, you've more than earned everything. So that's kind of where I was coming from.
I see it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sean Keller, please. Can we unmute him?
I've asked him to.
There we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, trustees. Again, Sean Keller, current principal at Robert Dow, but former football and wrestling coach at PGHS for several years, and also coaching at other schools as well. I just want to speak up on behalf of the coaches on this point, that along with Dr. Hadquist's comments, you know, finally, probably coaches would earn what they really deserve under these circumstances. Just, you know, with all the film and scouting that football coaches put in, and at least for wrestling, and I completely understand your concerns, Trustee Paff, with wrestling, even though it is the best sport in the world. Of course, I'm biased, but there's, you know, those tournaments are long, very, very long, with a lot of travel, and I'm not sure exactly how that's going to look this year. But I just know as a former coach, we get our pay, and we love doing what we did, but it doesn't pay all the bills. So I just hope that we support our coaches during this time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else at this time?
You know, I did just one other thought as I was listening to what people were thinking, and you know, one of the things that I think what we're talking about here is like maybe in the future introducing some sort of force majeure clause into the stipend MOU, right? Where it's like if by some act of God, everything is completely scuttled, that's very different than and a very rare occurrence. And we don't need to delve into it right now. I'm not even proposing that we do, but if at a future date we want to address that, when it comes to the my usual day-to-day world, and we've had to deal with it, of course, ad nauseum. It's that's how we manage it, is with the force majeure clause, which addresses acts of God or riot or flood or whatever, but then on a cataclysmic scale, really. So, but for future discussion.
Okay. And obviously coaches, when you figure what they get paid per hour, it's
$1.95, yeah.
It's nothing. I mean, people go coach because it's a passion, and it's a wonderful thing they do for our kids. So we're just looking at this monetarily for a moment, but in the spirit of it all, you have to support that goodness and kindness to our kids. So let's have a motion on this, please.
Make a motion to accept the certificate assignment order number 6 as presented.
I second it. So classified assignment order number 6, move to accept by Mr. Paff and seconded by Ms. Dawson. Vote, please.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Student advisory?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion wins 3-0. So lastly, we have the contract for Central Coast kids and families. And
So,
yes, thank you, Mr. Paff.
I'll step up here again. So actually I had 2 parts of this. One is, if this is under the leadership of Ms. Bell, Dr. Porras, there's no conflict of interest at this point.
No, we don't have a Principal Bell is no longer.
I don't have a Principal Bell anymore, so we're all clear. Okay.
Even then, it wouldn't have made a difference. But no, there's no conflict of interest.
Okay. The second thing is really, a broader subject, and I appreciate coming in with CCKF, but I am wondering if are we going to continue to look for a paraprofessional and move this forward and actually bring it back to us? Is there a longer term plan? Is this short term, long term? I guess where's it going?
Sure, thank you. This is a short-term plan. We do have the paraprofessional posted indefinitely. We have not had very qualified candidates, and we are very committed to only hiring the very best people that fit the profile of what we look for. So we are not a district that just hires a body. And so we're waiting for that perfect person to come along. This is a stopgap measure until we can get our small group instructions up and running on all the campuses. So we have our transition program already operating for the last 3 weeks. And so our student will join that class and need support until our high school class opens.
Okay, and so this amount that you're requesting, then this will go essentially through June?
No, well, let me explain that. No, it should only be for a few weeks. But I do want to mention that typically towards the end of the school year, like last year, for instance, we needed 2 more paras, but I'm kind of have a freeze on how many paras we can employ. So we had to fill in with 2 substitutes. We found great people who actually we ended up hiring due to attrition. And there will be times when, say, one of our paras goes out on leave, that we might need to ask Central Coast, can you fill in this gap for us? Typically, we're able to fill in the gaps with substitutes, but we are having a very difficult time right now with our substitute pool. The other complication as well is getting our subs learning how to do distance learning. So it's pretty complicated. So I don't know how much we would use the Central Coast contract, but I do know we have a need right now.
Okay. I apologize to Director Davies and Dr. Porras for, I had these questions earlier in the week and I could have sent them to you in advance for answers. So thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian, do you have questions at this time?
I do not. Thank you for asking.
Nor do I, but we have a couple from public. Carrie Serpa, I'm not sure if you were trying to talk to the previous thing or now. Please.
No, that's okay. It was the previous thing and my question was answered. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. We'll go to Carolyn Swanson.
Hello, good evening, Carolyn Swanson. I have a question. So I have started checking the contractors that we go into contracts with to see if they've got valid licenses or allowed to operate in the state of California. And Central Coast Kids and Family right now, and I may be missing something, but on the Secretary of State's website, it says that they're suspended and they're not allowed to do business at all. So can staff speak to that, please?
They are not on the non-public agency list. And because of what the situation that occurred, their NPA certification was revoked. And Linda Bell is presently applying to the state to have it back in order. So when you look at our master contract, which is a statewide boilerplate template that's used by all the SELPAs, it looks like a super, super, super complicated contract because it's covering non-public agencies, non-public schools, including those that are out of state when students are sent out of state, but it also covers service providers for related services. So if you look at the very, very last page of the contract, I'm trying to see what page that would be on.
I have it, it's page 80.
Okay, it said, if you look at what we're contracting for, it's for a related service, and that's the individualized services for the student, which falls under one-to-one paraprofessional. Central Coast is still a vendor in our community. San Andreas Regional Center uses them as a vendor to provide paraprofessionals to go into people's homes to provide respite. So what they do not have presently is non-public agency. I think that's probably what you found, Carolyn. They have a Monterey County Supreme Court, I think the word is executor. They have somebody that's assigned to them who's directly involved with the agency, the organization. So they have, Central Coast has continued to operate. They run camps for our students. When we're on break, many of our students go there for camps, and they also provide in-home workers for respite.
Thank you. And what you're saying, I understand it actually. However, the contract is between Central Coast Kids and Family LLC as an entity, and that's the exact entity that I looked up. So I would love for our students to be served and be back on campus. And I would hate for it to start and then the rug get pulled out from under this family, because it turns out that this entity, CCKF LLC, is not able to do business. So I have a concern with that.
Okay, well, so noted. And thank you for your comment this evening.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, do we have a motion? Oh, Lou raised a hand. Lou?
Or Jen?
Hi, this time you get Lou.
Okay.
Jen already gave her 3 minutes. So I would just like to, again, reiterate how much CCKF has helped us here while we've been in the lurch, and that whatever bad blood exists, we totally understand and 100% agree. It hurt us as well. But if there's some way we can move forward just for a short period, please help us out. It's been the thing that's really kept us going and allowed our son to attend school 5 days a week instead of just 3. And without them, we're gonna end up having to keep our kid out of school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So anyway, please think kindly of Linda Bell and the remaining people who are at CCKF, and don't hold the name of their agency against them, please, because of a former other person. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Mr. Paff?
Well, I make a motion to accept the contract for services with PGUSD and Central Coast Kids and Family.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion was made by John Paff and seconded by Brian Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Paff,
Aye.
trustee Swanson,
Aye.
student advisory.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to action discussion. And we're looking now at the adoption of board policy 0470, COVID-19 mitigation plan for first and our final reading.
I believe, Madam President, we are now moving into information discussion.
Yes? Oh,
And
what
so-
the heck? I went to the wrong page. I had to go back and forth. Okay. District update. I got the COVID part right.
Got the COVID.
Oh, holy cow. All right, information discussion. Dr. Poors, would you please update us on response to COVID-19?
Thank you, Madam President. And I will say out the gate, I intend this to be a relatively short update, as we intend to come next week on November 19th with a draft of our hybrid reopening plans, and also with a full board here with only 3 board members. We felt it was going to be a little bit unproductive to do a full report without everyone here contributing. So we'll have that for you on the 19th, a lot more detail in regards to hybrid return plans as we have them. And I think that'll be very helpful. In the meantime, just a few things to talk about here. The first is that looking at the county metrics, we met this morning for about 4 hours as county superintendents to talk about a lot of things happening out there. But the county metrics at this point to date are not looking good. It looks like there are increases in Monterey County in general. For example, our adjusted case rate is currently now at 10.0. Last week is at 7.9. Our positivity rate is 4.4%. Last week at 3.9%. And the county health office under Dr. Moreno's leadership has indicated to us that the cases are continuing to increase, and they're expecting more to be happening. There was a release that just came out about an hour ago that flashed across my email that a number of counties across the state are now going back into the red tier, or excuse me, back from red tier into the purple tier due to case increases in the state. So it's unfortunate because we're just watching a lot of these cases begin to build back up, which could very well mean that it's going to delay any opportunity for us to reopen for students other than the small targeted groups that we are working on. So I'm just want to preface with that. First piece from the county, I'll continue to send out those messages from the county as we get them, and you can also get them on the county website. To that end, as we had told the board we have been continuing to look at all of the requirements surrounding the elementary transitional kindergarten through 6th grade waiver that the state has offered. While the positivity rates are climbing, they were still within the range to allow for school districts to apply. However, the county is thinking this is probably going to close out pretty soon. At this point, the administration, based on everything we've looked at, are not recommending to the board that we pursue the waiver, as several other districts are not pursuing it. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. The first reason being that there are some very strict guidelines around how a school may operate under the waiver. Waiver operates under the purple tier, so maximum restrictions. And under a waiver, we would still need to comply with the very restricted cohorts. So again, the cohort model as it exists only allows up to 16 individuals, typically 14 students with 2 adults. And they cannot be mixed cohorts. So once a cohort is established for any of these grade levels in the waiver, the teacher also cannot jump from cohort to cohort. So if there was, for example, an AM class and a PM class, the teacher instructing the in-person AM cohort could not then go and teach the PM cohort. That creates a bit of a problem for us because we would literally need to hire somewhere upwards of 8 to 10, perhaps a few more full-time teachers to help us cover all of the cohorts because we can't mix them. Financially, that becomes a tremendous burden. Also, simply trying to find that many more qualified teachers at this time would be difficult at best. The restriction then for facilities would be difficult because we would need to have enough time to provide for cleaning and disinfecting, which we would not have in that kind of a model. And at this stage of the game, the red tier allows for mixing of cohorts as practicable, but we are not anywhere near the red tier. A lot of problems that are going in there. All of our teachers would love to get back in the classrooms, but they're asking, as we are as well, administration, for the safest environment possible. The waiver is not going to allow us to get there at this point because of the staffing. However, that being said, we're continuing to look at what an opening for hybrid would look like if we go into the red tier. Again, and moving along as the pace we expected, and we'll provide those plans for you in a week. Based on that, however, and the metrics that are happening at hand, we're really not anticipating, and the county is not either, that we're going to have a change in metrics come January. We were truly at kind of we're at the mercy of the county metrics. Our game plan and the board approved a tentative target date to return for January the 5th. We're not believing that's going to be possible based on what's happening with the metrics. However, we're continuing to plan as best as we can. We do believe that with the holidays in December, that there's going to be some concern that many families may not have taken all the precautions necessary in their own family cohorting and would need some time to allow families to return and some space before we brought them back into a classroom anyway. So if the metrics were to allow for it and we went into a red tier, we would likely be recommending that the red tier hybrid plans not begin until the very end of January rather than the beginning of January. We can talk about that date in a week from now when you see the plans in front of you. I wanted to give you that heads up. In speaking with several districts around the county, most of them are following that same trend. In fact, 3 districts that we know of are now not returning to a hybrid model until the county reaches the orange tier. So there's lots of differences now happening out there, but all of them are based on what the county metrics look like. The other piece that we had taken a close look at is the schedules for the hybrid. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that before we present them in a week from now. I think it's important for everyone to understand as we have these dialogues with our teachers and our administration, safety is -- priority for our staff and our students. We want to make sure whatever we organize complies with the guidelines from the state, the California Department of Public Health. So issues like allowing gaps in the scheduling for in the event that a COVID case happens, are we able to have those students not come, adjust the schedule accordingly, make sure that we have an adequate number of time for quarantining and then coming back. We want to continue using the asynchronous schedules that we're currently using right now for distance learning. So Mondays would continue to be a source for teachers to prep and to be prepared, and students would still be receiving instruction otherwise. We would need to be balancing those families that are still requesting full distance learning. Nothing has changed in regards to the state allowing families to choose full distance learning rather than hybrid. To that end, at this point, our surveys are generally showing about a third of our families district-wide indicating that they will remain in distance learning no matter what. That's a lot of folks. It is aligning with the number of teachers that we feel are going to be in line to teach full distance learning. But the important note there is that even if we went back into a hybrid model and those students returning from distance learning to hybrid, things are going to look very, very different. It's not, we're going to have to restrict gatherings. We'll have to restrict pathways. There may not be access to the kinds of programs that people might be thinking. Daycare programs will look very different because we will be restricted in how we license that. Transportation will still be pretty much non-existent based on the guidelines from the state. So even if we were to come back in a hybrid, as we look at these plans, it's not going to be the same as before. Also, re-rostering will still be required as we balance out those students that are in full hybrid, full distance learning and coming back to hybrid. So families will need to understand that if we were to return under a hybrid, they would likely, well, there's a good possibility that their student would have a different teacher than the teacher they have currently, because we will need to do quite a bit of re-rostering, and we're working on that right now. So a lot of things happening. Like I said, the best indication that you'll see is when we bring the plans that we have for potential red tier hybrid programs next week. And last but not least, before I open any questions, I just want to reiterate how thankful I am for our teaching and our classified staff out there and our administrative team. It's really hard to communicate the amount of hours and time and effort that the staff is putting forward to look at every possible angle to make this work. Our teachers want our students back in the classrooms. We're trying to figure out a way to make that happen with a very unpredictable circumstances coming to us from the state and the metrics and what's happening with COVID. So I want to appreciate our staff. They are truly, truly amazing. We're going to keep doing the work, and we'll have more information for you in 1 week's time when the rest of the board returns.
All right, so can we open this up for questions that might be out there?
Absolutely. For the board or for the public?
Yep, board or public.
You want to start, Christy? You have questions?
No, I don't have questions at this time. I look forward to next week where we see models from the various sites and get into the nitty gritty once again.
Okay.
Mr. Paff?
Well, I would just like to make sure that when we have something, it is posted as soon as possible and it is sent out through constant comment or any of our Remind sites to have as many eyes as possible taking a look at what we're actually suggesting. So when you are ready, Ralph, you know, Wednesday afternoon is a hard call to say it's all there, but let's see what we can do and make sure that it's really broadcast as widely as possible.
I was blathering on there for a second too, and I didn't realize I was muted. So
you got no response for some reason.
yeah, so I did want to add too that I think one of the more important parts of the message that we send out is that what you touched upon, Dr. Patterson, and how where we really get hung up on the waiver is with the number of students that we have. And because I hear in my ear quite often people asking, well, why can this, you know, why can All Saints do this, or why can this person do that? And I think that really explains it all in a nutshell, why we're not able to do what some smaller schools are able to do. And I think if some folks understood that message, it would at least give them greater appreciation of the struggles that we're facing here and doing some of the things that they wish that we could do.
Okay, thank you. I know we have a public comment. Anything else, gentlemen, before I go to that? Oh, hand went down.
Student rep.
Student rep, Gabriella, comments?
No comments, but thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think the public comment has been withdrawn, it looks like. Okay. Thank you for that update. Oh, Carolyn, oh, not there? Okay. Hands are up, hands are down. Okay, we'll move forward, please. Thank you for that update. We look forward to next week. Next, we're going to hear about the Student Resource Center at Pacific Grove High School. And we'll hear from Principal Garcia, please.
Make sure.
Make sure.
I got to make sure I can unmute it. There we go. It should be online here momentarily.
Yes. And Dr. Porras, if we could also unmute Jayla Ellis, please, because she will actually be doing the bulk of the presentation.
Got it. I'm inviting her to unmute now.
All right. Thank you. So just a little recap in that back in September, Miss Ellis, who is a PG High alum, came to the board with this idea of creating a high school student resource center. And since then, the two of us have been working closely to make this happen. And it is our goal to open the Student Resource Center in the coming weeks. And so I would ask Ms. Ellis to present the PGUSD High School Student Resource Center to the public at this time. Ms. Ellis.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. So my name's Jayla, just for all of those who didn't hear. So I guess I'll just start right into it. Can I have the next slide, please? So I am a 2017 Pacific Grove alum, and I'm currently at Sacramento State University, and I have recently proposed of developing a student resource center for Pacific Grove Unified School District. And this facility will be created to families of low income, homeless youth, and those experience unsafe living environments. I also want to note that this will be open to anybody really who needs the facilities within our community just at the high school. It doesn't really have to be for those who qualify or those who are just stated. Next slide, please. The purpose of this project is, one, to lessen the burden of Pacific Grove School District closure on the communities in the need, and two, to provide the community in need with everyday necessities that have experienced anything due to COVID, so that are less burdened, and three, to provide a safe environment where children can be helped. So within school, coming to school every day when people don't have clothes, clean clothes or food can sometimes be a little bit embarrassing for some high schoolers, and many don't want to speak up or feel or tell how they feel about it. So this would be the whole purpose, is to create a safe environment for those who need stuff. Next slide, please. The funding. So I guess the main question would be how the resource center will be funded, and that would be primarily through grants, GoFundMe, and donations. Funds will be given primarily through donations and supplies. Donations given through GoFundMe, cash or check, will go towards necessities that will be needed in the Student Resource Center. So I can talk about the grant. I am currently in an internship, which is a business incubator in which they help aim and develop young entrepreneurs. So that is where a lot of my grant will be coming from, to like start off the resource center. And then we primarily will be taking donations to support the rest of upcoming of the center. Next slide, please. The resources that we will provide in the center would primarily be food, water, clothing, hygiene products, socks, underwear, feminine products, deodorant, soap, shavers, hair ties, shampoo, conditioner, lotions, toilet paper, school paper, pens, pencils, backpacks, calculators, erasers, pencils, some baby supplies, and then pencil pouches. And these are kind of what we'd be taking for as donations within the center. So yeah. And next slide, please. So operating time, I will let Mr. Garcia talk about that one.
All right, so our start date is the week of November 30th. We will be using some of our COVID protocols to ensure safe access to the room that will be available to our students. We will limit that to one person at a time. We will have a restroom available also, and a hand washing station if necessary, to ensure that folks entering and exiting are applying the proper safety protocols, hygiene protocols. And in the beginning, we will start off with shorter hours and judge our interest and access based on that, and we can expand from there. Ms. Ellis has stated that she will volunteer time, and I believe Mr. Swanson at one point said he would be willing to jump in there and help out. And so we will find folks to provide the opportunity for our students to come on campus to access the room. And we will work diligently to message this out to our PG High community as to the availability, and as Ms. Ellis just pointed out, the resources that are available.
Next slide, please. And then the last slide is sustainability. So the long-term goal is to allow the resource center to operate as long as the center is given space on the school grounds, and the money will be provided through donations to keep the resource center open through fundraisers and donations. So as long as we can fill in the center and always have donations and fundraisers to support it, then the long-term goal is to always have it on campus. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. And again, thank you to Ms. Ellis for bringing this forward. It's going to be a wonderful addition to the high school, and a long-lasting, what I see as a tradition of the high school, and the ability to give back to students. And we can credit our alum, Ms. Ellis, for all of this. Thank you.
Okay, any comments from board members on this? Mr. Paff?
Yeah, well, so the same concern I think I had on day one is not stretched. Principal Garcia, you're still looking at a room in, what is it, E-Wing? Is that correct?
E or I? One, yes, in the back part of the school.
The back part of the school?
Yes.
And as expressed, the community here means high school students, high school student body, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And there seems to be, there was some statement about a relationship to COVID, but I guess the plan is not that it's related to COVID, it's continue as long as possible. So my concern is staffing and replenishment of supplies. And quite frankly, it cannot fall to ASB or Ms. Afifi to do that. It has to be done some other way, almost to the point where I would feel far more comfortable saying, we'll rent a room to you for $12 a year, you know, $1 a month to ensure, and then it becomes a third-party action. Or I would feel much better if there was a student group who said, yes, we'll step in now and Interact Key Club to pick this up. Because while I see that we have somebody ready and able for the next 6-7 months, it's not so clear after that. So I would suggest, I don't know what you need from us now anyway. This is information discussion, which might mean you don't need board permission to do it. I don't know, which would be okay. But it would be good to see if there's a student group willing to pick up as a long-term project to ensure that it is staffed and maintained. Now, the grant money coming in may or may not happen in a rational, but eventually someone will figure that out. But it does have to be able to be open. So,
and to your point, Mr. Path, it is informational at this time. Staffing is a concern of mine long-term, but I believe we will be able to do that once we get it up and running and folks see the value of it. I do like the idea of perhaps a club stepping in, either an existing club or maybe the creation of a new club to support this program. I have spoken to our PTA about this and have asked for annual funding of this, and there's a willingness for our PTA to provide some dollars for that. And I also feel that once we publish the list of items that we will be stocking the room with, that we will also get folks who will, let's say, be at Costco and see, well, I see they need some socks. I'll pick up a pack of socks and drop those off at the high school. I think we're also going to see a lot of in-kind just donations there as well throughout the years. And one thing that Ms. Ellis pointed out to me earlier when we were meeting is actually Monterey High School is going to be helping us out. They have this program on their campus, and they have a lot of supplies. And Ms. Ellis spoke with the principal there, and he's willing to actually help us out with some of their surplus at this time.
Yeah, I think as you move forward, the intent is so good and so honorable. And I think, you know, the hours are going to be, that was the first thing I thought of too. Who's there and who monitors? And I know, having worked in and been involved in food banks previously, I mean, how many supplies are given to an individual who walks in, and that kind of balance. But that's why it's so great to talk to other people that have existing programs that can kind of give information as to what has proven to be effective. Because it certainly doesn't need to be with the size of the high school, open 8 hours a day. Maybe it's a shorter period after school, so there's more anonymity as people can go in there and it's a bit more confidential and they're not in front of the whole world asking, which I think sometimes students might be a bit leery about. So the effort is wonderful, and it's all about learning how to make it work. So I support the notion, and good luck moving forward with it. Mr. Swanson?
Not a lot to say about it, other than I think it's great, and it's highly commendable in so many ways too. It's serving a need for a community that is grown larger, that's, you know, become more and more in need, and more folks that are in need. And I also think that just from a learning standpoint, I mean, Ms. Ellis has done a really fantastic job in learning how to do these things. You know, it's so there are just so many elements of it that I think are great. I could go on and on, but I would just there's no point in my doing that. It's evident already what's happening here, and if there are hiccups along the way, those things are what we often learn from the most too. So somebody might come in someday and take all the socks, but maybe they need all the socks. So that's just how we learn, and I'll stop with that.
All right, thank you so much. Gabriella, anything to add on this?
I do not have anything to add on this, but I do think this is a great idea, and it's going to be very helpful to lots of students. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to turn out, and I'm really hopeful about it.
See, you do have something to add. Thank you so much for that. Okay, we have a public comment, please, Ms. Reeb.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you to Miss Ellis for this initiative. I think it's awesome. I did see that Monterey High School had done this a while back, so I was kind of just keeping an eye out, wondering when PG was going to offer something similar, if PG would offer something similar. So love to see it. I hope that you guys are able to get this off of the ground. I hope that we can avoid operating it from a scarcity mindset, like was just spoken. If someone does take all the socks, maybe they need them, but I believe in our area, we could replenish the sock supply. We'll be okay. I actually own Mission 57 Escape Room down on Cannery Row, and my business would love to make a donation to seed this facility so that we can get it started. So please, by all means, reach out or let me know how I can help, because I would love to see this thing become a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for those comments. Next, we'll hear from Lou, please.
Hi, it's me again. Wow, this is fantastic. I'm really impressed by you, Ms. Ellis. I was just thinking that maybe this could be coupled with the community service that we still need our kids to get. I bet this would be a great volunteer adventure for our kids. So hopefully kids who are listening or parents might reach out to you and say, hey, how can we volunteer? So just thought that might be a nice coupling. And also just wanted to add, thank you all very much for approving the contract with CCKF. We've had many months of grief, and this is a little light in our day. So thank you all very much. You've always come through for our family and for all the families of PG. So I know you work hard, and I just want to personally say thanks. And especially to Claire, who works so hard. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, please. Your name's not on there. I'm so.
I see an Elliot Hazen.
That's Elliot, but the name disappeared and I couldn't remember. Thank you. Elliot, please share.
Yes, very quickly. Just want to start by saying first, and I think most importantly, thank you so much, Jayla. This is awesome. Gives a lot of hope in a time of a good bit of despair. So it's really cool to see a graduate and doing so much for the community. And I just wanted to mention there's a program called All in Monterey too that has been doing a lot during COVID times, and they might be another good one to reach out to see if they'd be interested in either co-sponsorship or partnership as well. So thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other hands at this point. So thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing how this moves forward, Jayla.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Okay. The next thing we'll look at is future agenda items. Are there any additions to that from this evening?
Yes, Madam President, we need to bring back what are current action items C and D, the waivers for the high school and the middle school, to the November 17th board meeting. And I didn't
17 or 19? 19, right? November 19?
19.
Excuse me, 19, yes.
That's a 12 plus 7. There you go.
There you go.
Good try, Ralph. You
Yeah,
all show up.
I do that on occasion.
Just seeing if we're paying attention.
Okay, another hand has come up. Carolyn, you have something to add?
I do have something to add. Thank you. I've got two things actually. So Claire put together a really nice parent workshop. It was earlier this week. It was on Tuesday night. And I was there, and I counted, we had 17 people on the meeting. And so I thought that was pretty great. But I wanted to bring back up my agenda item that I originally had requested, which was for SELPA or some third-party entity to present to the board specifically about the workings of special ed, so that we can all make better decisions for kids who qualify for special ed. That was my first future agenda item I would like to request. And my second one is that we make a decision or an item up for us to continue streaming our meetings even after COVID. So I think we need to put that in writing, or at least talk about putting it in writing. Thank you.
For the first item, I thought we voted on that last time, that the board had the possibility of attending that meeting, and that's why the SELPA had dropped off future agenda items. That was my understanding. Anybody have something different from that?
No, that was, I thought that's where we had gone also, and that the presentation that was done earlier this week was going to be recorded and made available too. Was that not the case?
I would need to ask Director Davies in regards, I think that there was a concern from SELPA in regards to recording the commentary and questions back and forth, but that they were going to be able to record the presentation part of the training. So I think it's not the interchange between public was unrecorded, but the presentation itself was to be recorded. And I can see if Director Davies can clarify that for
me. We have the recording available to us, and so we would need people to email us, and then we can send them the link to the recording. So I need to get that out to the community. It was an excellent presentation, especially for parents that are new to the process. After you've been in the program a few years, people have a pretty good grasp of the IEP process. It's in the initial stages. So I was talking to the two presenters, and I was thinking what would really be helpful is if we provided the training twice a year to our parent community by tracking all the kids that are initially being placed, and then what would be open to anybody, but definitely target that group of parents so they could have an introduction and have a chance to deeper understand the process and the IEP paperwork that can be very overwhelming when you're first introduced to it. So yes, there was a bit of a limitation from the SELPA as far as it's just posting it on our website.
Perhaps Director Davies, we can go ahead and send that regardless to our trustees directly.
Thank you, Ralph. I was going to ask that.
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, that'd be great. I think that'd be just what we need. And that's what we kind of agreed on previously. So I think that would hold at this time. And for the streaming stuff, I think that again, we should perhaps bring that up when all trustees are here next time, because it has been, I mean, the amount of people who are able to participate and view these meetings has skyrocketed because they can be home cooking dinner or taking care of kids, or you see some come in and go out and come in. So the ability to be involved with the district is gone up exponentially, I think, with this.
I'd like to make another comment. So our district is absolutely the most supportive district of students on IEPs. And it has been since I came to the district 7 years ago. And your trust in our principals and in me, and letting us develop our program has been absolutely amazing. And the amount of investment that you put into our program, you guys are always so nice to us and thanking us as board members. And I don't know if we ever really think to turn around and thank you, because you have been absolutely amazing all these years that I've been in this district. And we have developed the very best special ed program, and it is a renowned program. And I want to thank my superintendent, and I want to thank all board members, because you invest enormous amount of money in this program. We believe in being proactive rather than reactive, and we have hired the very best people. So I just want to thank you for everything that you've done for us.
That's very nice to hear. Thank you for turning around and saying that.
You're welcome.
There was another, thank you, Claire. There was another item that was requested last meeting, Dr. Porras. And that was to put somewhere back on the agenda, solar power. I don't know when you want to do that.
We were having a sentimental moment, John.
No, we're back to reality all of a sudden.
And I appreciate that. I do. I really do, Claire. And I really appreciate you saying that more than I care to admit. On the other hand, I'm tired and hungry too.
Okay.
I'll put solar panel revisited on the future agenda. I'm not sure when we will have an opportunity to get to that one, but we'll put it on to future agenda.
Well, it might be something that we say just goes on next fall and we just don't even revisit, but I don't want to lose it completely.
Next fall, that's a long time. Let's look at spring first.
Okay, well, I'll put spring. I'll put spring down. How's that sound?
Spring is a good time. The sun comes out and there's hope.
And power.
All right. So I think I want to say, speaking of basking in kindness, I want to thank everybody for supporting me through this evening. I felt the difference was when someone else is driving and you're in the car versus driving the car. And I just appreciate the support so much. And we'll see everybody in 1 week. And it sounds like there'll be some items on there extra from tonight, but it will have a full group of trustees. So that's nice. So thanks everybody for being here tonight.
Good night, everyone.
Cue jump, Brian. Go ahead.
Thanks. What?
Cue jump.
Oh, I didn't even have it.
Oh.
Oh no, we'll have it next
There we go.
time.